If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description.
Chapter 41, The Unlucky Guild Master. Welcome. The cheerful voice at the entrance belonged to a cute girl working as the store greeter. Rhodes' first thought? Not as pretty as Myra. Would you like to sit here? Another adorable waitress led them to a table. Rhodes' evaluation? Still not as pretty as Myra. As they passed the cashier counter, the woman behind the register flashed them a warm, welcoming smile. Rhodes' silent verdict? You guessed it, not as pretty as Myra. All right, calm down. Breathe. No need to get carried away. The dessert shop was bustling with customers, perhaps due to its grand opening. By the time Rhodes and Myra took their seats, not a single table was left vacant. Most of the patrons were groups of girls chattering excitedly over their sweets, while a handful of tables were occupied by couples. The store played soft, pleasant music, adding to its relaxed, cozy atmosphere. Myra glanced at the menu. Iced coffee, hazelnut cookies, blueberry mousse cake. She picked out 2 desserts, then hesitated, a conflicted expression on her face. Rhodes caught the look immediately. Something wrong? I kind of want to try the cream puffs too, Myra admitted, pinching her waist under the table, where there was barely any fat to begin with. But I don't want to gain weight. Wait, wizards actually worry about stuff like that. Rhodes mused, then offered a solution. How about I order some? We'll just share. Myra's eyes lit up. Great idea. That way, it doesn't count towards my portion. Rhodes chuckled. You know, I just like tasting different foods. And I don't really worry about my figure. I exercise enough that I can afford to indulge. Desserts aren't about the calories, they're about the experience. The waitress taking their order shot Myra an envious look before quickly jotting everything down. Please wait a moment. Myra took off her sun hat, setting it aside as she casually swept her bangs back with her fingers. She pulled the hair tie from her wrist and effortlessly tied her hair back into her usual style. Rhodes noticed something: she actually looked really nice with her bangs down. This place has a really nice vibe, Myra remarked. No wonder it's so popular. Yeah, it's definitely quieter than the guild, Rhodes agreed, glancing around at the various groups of friends and couples talking in hushed, cheerful tones. Feels like the perfect place for afternoon tea or a date. Myra's expression shifted slightly. Oh? So, Rhodes, do you take girls to places like this often? Rhodes' instincts screamed at him this was a trap question. He immediately responded with firm resolve. I'm not loc. Myra giggled. I never really had many close female friends before, Rhodes continued. And honestly, I've never been to dessert shops or cafes like this. Before college, dating wasn't really on his radar. And after that? He mostly just hung out with the guys. Cafes? Nope. Internet cafes? Absolutely. Myra blinked. Why do I suddenly feel a little bad for you? Hey. She laughed. No wonder you couldn't even look Kana in the eyes at first. Let's not bring that up. By now, Rhodes had adapted. Not only could he meet Kana's gaze, he could even spar with her. Even if he never won. The waitress returned, carefully placing 2 glasses of iced coffee and an elegantly arranged plate of desserts on the table. Ah, these cream puffs look even fancier than I imagined, Myra said, picking up her fork. But just as she was about to take a bite, Rhodes swiftly moved the plate away. Nope. Hey? Why not? I'm still mad about you teasing me. Myra chuckled, clasped her hands together, and gave him an exaggeratedly sweet smile, her blue eyes twinkling mischievously. How about I apologize? All right, I forgive you. Rhodes nodded calmly, pushing the plate of desserts back toward Myra before shifting his gaze out the window. Flirting like this was downright unfair. He needed to focus on something else to clear his head. Then. Wait a second. Is that a stone statue? Or a hill? Myra had just speared a small piece of cake onto her fork but hadn't taken a bite yet. She followed Rhodes' gaze and saw an enormous pile of suitcases and a completely motionless, expressionless Erza standing beside it. Myra blinked. Erza. Rhodes nodded. Looks like she's been blocked outside because there aren't any open seats. Myra considered the situation for a moment. Should we invite her in? She can squeeze in with us. Rhodes hesitated. He wasn't exactly thrilled about it. But looking at Erza, standing stiffly outside with her mountain of luggage, it was clear she had just returned from a mission and rushed straight here without even heading home first. She really did look pitiful. Rhodes sighed internally. Fine. I'll go call her in. Wait a moment, Myra suddenly stopped him, covering her mouth with a mischievous smile. Rhodes raised an eyebrow. What now? Myra giggled. I want to watch a little longer. Erza looks really cute like this. She was evil. Still, now that Myra mentioned it, Rhodes took another good look. The mighty, intimidating Titania fairy queen of fairy tale standing there completely frozen, looking dejected over something as trivial as not getting a seat at a dessert shop. It was a rare, almost adorable sight. The sheer contrast made it even funnier. The devil of the dessert house finally relented, inviting the fairy queen inside. As Rhodes went to call her, he reminded Erza, there aren't any extra seats inside, though. But before he could even finish, Erza reached into her mountain of suitcases and, without hesitation, pulled out a folding chair. It wasn't exactly a casual everyday item. Judging by the patterns and text on it, it looked more like a souvenir from somewhere. One thing was clear, she really wanted dessert. Rhodes and Myra remained seated across from each other, while Erza took a spot beside them, immediately flagging down a waiter to place her order. Strawberry cake, strawberry pudding, strawberry milkshake. One after another, she rattled off her choices, every single one featuring strawberries. Way to keep your preferences subtle, Erza. The waiter scribbled down the lengthy order and turned to leave. But before walking away, he shot Rhodes a look, one filled with silent judgment, as if he were some kind of scumbag. Rhodes was baffled. Excuse me? Who in their right mind would dare mess around with Erza Scarlet? Meanwhile, Myra had already started chatting with Erza. Did the mission go smoothly? You're back earlier than expected. Yep. Erza nodded enthusiastically, clenching her fist with determination. Her eyes practically sparkled with anticipation. I've been looking forward to this place for a long time. Myra chuckled. As expected of Erza. But since it was a mission involving the Magic Council, is it really okay for you to return early? Erza's confident expression faltered for a moment. Well, I hope this doesn't get the master in trouble. Rhodes tilted his head curiously. What kind of mission was it? Since it involved the council, is it classified? Erza hesitated, glancing at Myra. Technically, she wasn't supposed to discuss mission details until they were fully wrapped up, even with fellow guild members. But now, all that was left was clean-up work. Myra made the call. Since Erza's part is done, I don't see any harm. Besides, the details will be in the newspapers soon anyway. She smiled at Rhodes before explaining, it was a mission assisting the council in taking down the Dark Guild, Scorpion Tail. Rhodes raised an eyebrow. Doesn't the Magic Council have its own law enforcement teams for that? Myra nodded. They do, but the council is a continent-wide organization, and there's only one official branch in Fiori. The location where Scorpion Tail was hiding was too remote for them to respond quickly. So in cases like these, the council issues support requests to local guild alliances. The alliance then delegates the job to a specific guild. Oh, I see, Rhodes mused. So our guild got chosen because we have a good reputation. Erza immediately shook her head. No, it's because the master has bad luck. Hey! The reward for these kinds of council missions is usually lower than other jobs of the same difficulty. So, unless the mission is particularly dangerous, the guild alliance assigns them by drawing lots. As she spoke, Erza let out a long sigh. And our master? Myra finished the thought with a knowing smile. Always manages to pull the worst lot. Rhodes stared blankly for a moment. Yeah. That tracks. Maybe the master used up all his luck picking up stray kids and somehow always ended up with an S-class one each time. Chapter 42, Clumsy? Naive? The unlucky guild master often drew missions that had low pay but weren't easy. He couldn't personally handle everything, so he could only entrust them to the kids. The ideal candidate was Laxus, but with his personality, it was difficult to make that work. Thus, Erza, with her strong sense of responsibility and sufficient strength, often stepped in to solve these issues for the guild master. Rhodes thought about it for a moment. Erza's influence in the guild wasn't just because of her strength. Wait! Rhodes suddenly noticed something odd. What did Erza mean just now by completing the mission ahead of schedule? Is it what I think it is? Erza nodded. I just took down the entire guild alone, it's no big deal. Rhodes fell silent. Sure, no big deal. Could it be that the outside world wasn't as dangerous as he had imagined? Rhodes hesitated. Wasn't that a bit unsafe? It was a bit rash to make that decision in haste, Erza admitted seriously, but she quickly added. I was just too eager for the strawberry cake from this place, I couldn't wait for backup. I'll think more carefully next time. Great. So, because she was eager to get back to eat cake, she soloed an entire dark guild. Makes perfect sense. Myra wasn't surprised at all, it was just Erza's style. Plus, she'd read the intel on Scorpion's tail, Erza could easily handle it. The waitress soon brought the things Erza had ordered, small plates filling up the entire table. Erza was immersed in her desserts, occasionally showing expressions completely unlike her usual stern demeanor, cute and full of delight. Rhodes quietly calculated. Erza defeated an entire dark guild, and I've been beaten by Erza. So, my strength is roughly equivalent to that of a dark guild. Perfectly logical. Haha, stay humble, stay humble. Rhodes entertained himself after finishing his dessert. Erza pushed some of the numerous servings of strawberry cake towards Myra and Rhodes. Eat with me. Rhodes asked, isn't strawberry cake your favorite? That's why I want to share it. Sharing with companions makes delicious things even more delicious. Erza looked ecstatic as she said it, her tone almost monotone. Since it's Erza's sentiment, I'll have a bit more. Myra cut a small cake in half and shared it with Rhodes. Then Erza started to feel something was off, speaking of which, why are you two here together? Could it be a date? Rhodes hadn't reacted yet, but Erza's face was already red, her words becoming awkward. When are you two getting married? Pfft. Rhodes covered his mouth, almost spitting his coffee on her face. You're jumping way ahead. Is it not? It's just that Wakaba's wife gave us 2 complimentary tickets, Myra explained, then put a hand on her cheek, smiling mischievously. Well, but if you think of it as a date, I suppose that works too. Date? Erza stuttered continuously. Myra laughed even harder. Shy Erza is adorable too. Too bad Rhodes doesn't blush anymore, it was more fun before. Rhodes let out a light sigh. 1 month of experience had thickened his skin, or maybe he'd grown used to it. The main thing was, when he left home today, he'd acted as if it was a date anyway. Now, being teased by Myra like this, there wasn't really any room to feel embarrassed. Rhodes soon found that Erza was a bit naive. When he and Myra had already moved on to another topic, Erza was still confirming with Myra whether she'd been joking or not. It took a while to clear things up for Erza, and for her to finish her desserts. Then, the 3 of them left together. Please come again. The waitress at the entrance gave a polite bow, but Erza suddenly stopped and said to Myra and Rhodes, wait for me. Rhodes asked, what's up with her? Myra thought for a moment, maybe she wants to pack up some cakes to take home. A few minutes later, Erza returned, but now she was wearing the uniform of the shop's waitresses. Rhodes was completely bewildered. She'd gone in as a valiant knight, and come out as an elegant waitress? Did she just transform in there? Welcome. Would you two like to order something? Erza gave a slight bow, made a gesture inviting them, then straightened up and asked, what do you think? The greeter girl at the door was already mesmerized by Erza. It looks. Rhodes' words got stuck in his throat. He had intended to say beautiful, but changed it to, it suits you well. Myra smiled and applauded, it's beautiful. Why the sudden change? Because I thought this uniform was cute, so I asked the owner if she would sell it to me. Erza tugged at the collar. She said it wasn't for sale, but if I worked half a day here, she'd give it to me. Rhodes was a bit stunned. So you agreed? Erza nodded matter-of-factly. That's right. So, I'm starting work now. Can I leave my luggage with you guys to bring back to the guild? But... Rhodes' head buzzed. You're an S-class mage, making hundreds of thousands per mission, and you sold yourself just for a standard uniform? Myra made no move to stop her. In fact, she encouraged Erza instead, good luck, we'll take care of your luggage. In the end, it was the scuttle crab that took care of everything, not only pulling the luggage cart but also carrying both Rhodes and Myra. Do you find Erza's actions confusing? Myra asked. Myra sat sideways, her legs together, and her skirt tightly covering them like a mermaid. A little, yet. Is she really that type of person? It feels a bit clumsy, kind of naive. Rhodes thought about Erza's expression. She seemed to be enjoying herself. Myra said, I prefer to call it freedom and spontaneity. Erza likes all sorts of unique clothes and loves to try interesting jobs. As for how much she earns, it's completely out of her consideration. In fact, as long as doing it makes her happy, that's the greatest reward. Compared to Erza, or rather, compared to most of the guild, you're too tense and worried, Rhodes. I don't really know what you've experienced, what burdens you carry, so I'm not in a position to tell you to relax like the others. But at least today, even if it was just that little while in the dessert shop, I hope you were happy. That same bright smile she had when they first met, the same gentle tone as the first time he heard her speak, each word flowed into Rhodes' heart like a gentle stream. Soft, warm. Rhodes finally understood why he had fallen for her. Thank you, I am very happy. Every day in Fairy Tale has been happy. But today, especially happy. Chapter 43, Warren's Distress Signal. The news of Erza working as a waitress at the dessert shop spread quickly throughout the guild. Such sensational news directly led to a significant drop in foot traffic at the tavern. Most of the guys who usually hung around the guild decided to check it out, wanting to see what Erza looked like as a waitress. Most of the girls did too. The person who spread this news was definitely not Rhodes. Was it you again? Myra asked. I only told Max, Rhodes replied. Which is the same as telling the entire guild. I didn't expect everyone to be so interested in being served by Erza. Myra chuckled, don't you want to experience it too, Rhodes? Spare me, Rhodes said. The last time she dressed as a nurse, she almost strangled me with bandages. As a waitress. Will she smash customers' heads with the tray? Or maybe step on them? Myra waved her hand. She wouldn't go that far. I hope no one gets hurt. Rhodes offered a silent prayer for his guild mates, then took advantage of the quietness to train. In a corner of the guild's backyard were some dummies, wooden stakes, and a frame with hanging sandbags for practicing punches and kicks. All parts involving wood were kindly provided by Loki's wood-shaping magic. The payment was a simple diagram of a flying guillotine that Rhodes drew. It was a weapon or concealed tool from Wuxia novels, but because of its grim, guillotine-like design, Loki liked it. She said she had already taken it to someone to have the design modified in detail and was preparing to have it made. Most of the time, Rhodes was the one using the training equipment, but occasionally his diligence would inspire his companions, and they'd drop by to train. Especially Jet, Droy, and others who'd been defeated by him. Originally, Rhodes had asked Loki to make 2 wooden dummies, but when Natsu saw Rhodes practicing with them, he insisted on giving it a try. Now, all that was left of the dummies were the stakes. It didn't matter if they broke, at least they could punch without restraint. The sound of thudding echoed from the backyard, as Rhodes became increasingly proficient in coordinating his magic with his physical attacks. Answer my call, raptors. A crimson magic circle flashed, and in the guild's backyard appeared 1 large and 5 smaller strange birds. Chew, the largest bird, tilted its head back and let out a slightly raspy cry. Crimson raptors, commonly referred to as raptors. In the game, they weren't considered strong monsters, but when translated to reality, their sharp beaks had considerable piercing power. In addition, they had a ranged attack, the ability to shoot their feathers like knives. The smaller ones could shoot a feather at a time, while the larger one could launch a barrage. Moreover, it didn't take long for the feathers to grow back after being shot. Rhodes saw this as their skill cooldown and gave the move the name Feather Rain. If there was a downside, it was that they couldn't fly very high. The good news was that the largest one could carry Rhodes while gliding or flying at a low altitude, and thanks to their strong legs, they could run quite well too. Success! Rhodes clenched his fist, feeling a burst of joy. It wasn't just about acquiring the raptors, but also because he had successfully shortened the incantation. The lengthy spell had been reduced to just half a phrase plus a name, enough for emergency situations. He believed that with more time, he could achieve his goal of summoning with just a name. Rhodes felt the magic consumption of summoning the 6 raptors. It was a bit more than summoning 3 scuttle crabs, which was manageable. He commanded the raptors to perform some simple maneuvers, then summoned the 3 wolves, trying to have them work together, advancing and breaking through. Afterward, he summoned the Krugs, experimenting with whether he could form a well-rounded attack and defense formation. After a thorough practice session, reducing his magic energy to a level that wouldn't hinder normal activities, Rhodes finally returned to the tavern. The event from a week ago, when everyone rushed to see Erza, had already passed peacefully, and fortunately, there were no casualties. Meanwhile, the news about the Dark Guild Scorpion's tail being eradicated made it into the Sorcerer's Weekly. The council was quite dignified, they openly acknowledged that the credit belonged solely to Erza, without trying to claim any glory. Although they were slightly displeased with Erza for acting on her own, they were not stingy in praising her abilities. Truly, it's Erza. That was the evaluation from most of her companions. That gal's power is becoming scarier and scarier, Grey remarked, even taking the initiative to check whether he was wearing clothes. Scorpion's tail, isn't that a legal guild? Nab's question made everyone around him fall silent. It seemed to be true. Did Erza act against a legal guild? No, it had the council's involvement, so that couldn't be it. Max was more than happy to explain to everyone, Scorpion's tail was only recently classified as a dark guild. They were secretly working for some wealthy merchants, using kidnapping and coercion to suppress competition. It only got exposed recently. Everyone let out a sigh of relief, but soon their concern returned. Help! Everyone in the guild, including Rhodes, heard a voice like this. It's terrifying. Somebody save me! The same voice sounded once more. Rhodes suddenly realized that this voice wasn't coming from outside, it was ringing directly in his head. Before he could ask, Myra said seriously, it's Warren's telepathy magic. It allows him to transmit his thoughts to others over a distance. Rhodes wasn't familiar with Warren, only remembering the guy with a unique side-swept fringe who preferred keeping to himself. Others had already recognized it as well. That's Warren's voice. He's asking for help. Is he in danger? But wasn't he on a date with his girlfriend today? This was information Max had learned from talking to Warren yesterday. Where are you, Warren? Gray jumped up, yelling as he tried to communicate with Warren. Some people shouted, while others asked Warren's whereabouts in their minds, but none of them received a response. Warren only kept repeating words like scary, terrifying, and help. With a bang, Logue pushed open the guild's front door from outside, rushing in to ask. Does anyone know what's happening? Everyone out on the street heard Warren's cries for help. It's causing a panic. So it's a non-discriminatory call for help. Erza couldn't sit still any longer. The master isn't here now, so I'll take command. Everyone, prepare for battle. Erza quickly assigned tasks. Some people set off immediately to maintain order and protect the residents, while others were in charge of searching for Warren and preparing for a rescue. Generally speaking, when a mage went out, all their actions and the risks involved were their own responsibility. If others offered unsolicited help, it could be seen as an insult to the person's abilities, hurting their pride. But, if that person called for help during a crisis, then as companions, they would go all out to save them. At least, that's how Fairy Tale did it. Chapter 44, The Citywide Prank. Rhodes was assigned by Erza to search for Warren's whereabouts. Myra was to stay behind and, once the situation became clear, would be responsible for calming the nearby residents and, in the worst-case scenario, guiding civilians to evacuate. With Erza's command, the guild members quickly took up their respective duties, each doing their best to contribute. This was Rhodes' first time seeing the guild operate at full speed. A guild that argued and fought every day actually had such strong cohesion. Answer my call, Merc Wolves. Inspired by the atmosphere, Rhodes summoned 6 wolves in one go. In the Summoner's Rift, Merc Wolves had 2 packs, a total of 6. Erza, they have a keen sense of smell. If there's something Warren has used, they should be able to track him down quickly. If anyone needs to move fast, I still have the Scuttle Crab. Nab said, I know where Warren's home is. Let a few follow me. Myra also said, there may be some things Warren left in the guild. I'll go and look. You're a big help. I thought with Natsu gone, we wouldn't be able to track by scent. Erza said, all right then, let's split up. Okay. Rhodes divided one pack of Merc Wolves to follow Nab and left another pack to assist Myra in searching the guild. It's so high, it's so scary, help me. The search team paused and narrowed the search area to places that were elevated. Rhodes was worried about Warren's safety but also felt a sense of relief that he could be of use. That sense of relief only lasted a few minutes before it completely vanished. Other guildmates also dropped their concern, some even wanting to beat Warren up. Because I'm saved. Finally off that damned suspension bridge. I'm never going somewhere that high for a date again. Oh no. Was my telepathy active the whole time? Warren's voice cut off abruptly. Both inside and outside the guild, everyone broke into curses. Warren! You idiot, are you messing with us? We won't let you off. Fairy tale mages again? What are they up to this time? I thought they'd been quiet for a while. Isn't it too much to pull a prank across the entire city? Voices of all sorts echoed across Magnolia, with complaints on the streets loud enough to be heard even inside the guild. Erza put a hand on her forehead, feeling embarrassed after having just led everyone so heroically, only to end up like this. Myra stopped rummaging for Warren's belongings and instead smiled again. Oh my, oh my. We've gone and stirred up trouble again. Rhodes felt conflicted, so this was all because Warren was on a date on a suspension bridge, then panicked, causing his magic to lose control, and made his voice heard throughout the entire city. Erza nodded. Yes, he seems to have a severe fear of heights. The absurdity of the situation left Rhodes in disbelief. Since this affected the entire city, do you think the residents will tear down our guild? They won't. Myra waved her hand dismissively. Stuff like this isn't all that uncommon. There's a more over-the-top uncle in our guild. If he comes back, the whole city turns upside down. But we still have to properly apologize and seek everyone's forgiveness. I'll go find him right now. Erza's eyes became sharp. Rhodes, the scuttle crab. Right. Rhodes summoned the scuttle crab. It's similar to riding a horse. Use the antennae as reins. Got it. Erza leapt onto the crab's back, snapped the reins, and the crab sped off through the guild doors. Rhodes thought about Erza's intimidating look just now. You think Warren won't get chopped down by her, right? Myra said, he probably won't be killed. So, he'd still get chopped? Rhodes realized his common language had improved enough that he could easily catch the implied meaning in Myra's words. Besides, after something like this, even if he wasn't physically cut down, he'd be socially dead, wouldn't he? Rhodes imagined himself crying out for help across the entire city because of a fear of heights. How mortifying! How could he ever show his face again? Out of concern, Rhodes decided to connect to the scuttle crab's vision to check on Warren's situation. The crab's perspective entered his mind. The scenery in front of him was rapidly moving backward, clearly indicating Erza was pushing the crab to move at full speed. After just 1 second, Rhodes voluntarily disconnected from the vision. The crab's field of vision was pretty wide. Not having realized this earlier was one thing, but watching any longer, felt impolite. Good luck, Warren. The citywide prank incident had a pretty negative impact. On the day it happened, Erza and Myra went out with Warren to explain and apologize to many of the citizens, and when the master returned, he personally went to the city hall. But whether it was the mayor or the citizens, everyone was very forgiving about the incident. It was just shouting into everyone's minds. It's not like he wrecked the entire city. According to a rumor spread by someone other than Myra, the mayor said this to the master when he met him. The citizens complained for a few days, but soon enough, it became just a funny story. Did you hear? A fairy tale mage. The citizens now had more gossip for their tea-time conversations, adding yet another incident to fairy tale's history of mischief. Even Brother Goodman couldn't resist asking Rhodes what kind of magic it was that day and what kind of person Warren was. At this point, the situation was more or less resolved. But ever since then, Warren hadn't shown up at the guild for quite some time. When he ran out of money and had no choice but to take on missions, he'd hide in some corner outside the guild and use thought projection to communicate quietly with Myra. Myra would carefully select a suitable mission for Warren and then figure out how to send him the mission sheet. Yes, Myra told Rhodes this. Because the one delivering the mission sheets was none other than Rhodes' Merc Wolves. A few days ago, the high-speed feature of the scuttle crab had been used by Erza to catch Warren. Now, the Merc Wolves' excellent stealth and keen sense of smell abilities were being used to find Warren and secretly deliver mission sheets to him. I originally intended for them to help rescue Warren, but now look at this. Rhodes shook his head slightly. Anyway, they're being put to use. Since Rhodes had made significant progress in his goal of shortening magic incantations, he now had more time to read the Encyclopedia of Magic. He was looking for suitable magic to minor in. Of course, to be on the safe side, he still needed to consult the master before starting his training to see if there were any risks. As long as you follow the steps in learning most magic, and there is no issue with affinity, there won't be any danger, the master said. The concept of affinity was straightforward. It referred to having a natural talent for a certain type of magic. It often determined one's entry-level ability and the height one could reach in the future. As for how to determine affinity, generally speaking, magic that one could awaken on their own was the most suitable. For example, Erza had suddenly gained control over magic as a child during a time of crisis. If one couldn't awaken it independently, then one could only choose a magic they found interesting and try to quickly get started with it. Rhodes had already chosen a few targets of interest. Chapter 45, Solid Script and Shattered Hopes. When thinking about learning an additional type of magic, the first thing that came to Rhodes' mind was Levy's solid script magic. Levy, who used solid script magic, loved studying different languages. Would mastering multiple languages increase the power of such magic? Would the Earth language he knew be powerful? He'd only find out by trying. Coincidentally, Levy had recently felt that there wasn't much left to teach Rhodes about common knowledge of the world. Hearing that he wanted to learn solid script, Levy immediately patted her chest and promised to teach him everything she knew, offering him a 1-month trial without any fee. The basics of magic naturally started with the simplest characters. Golden magical light shimmered at the tip of Levy's finger as her wrist moved gently, forming words in mid-air. Solid script, fire. As soon as the word was completed, the golden magical light turned red, transforming into flames, dancing in the air as Levy waved her arm. Rhodes picked up a broken piece of wood from the corner of the yard and threw it into the flames, which immediately ignited. However, as the word fire was gradually destroyed, controlling the flames became increasingly difficult for Levy. After holding it for a while, the flames extinguished, leaving behind a piece of charcoal that continued to burn on the ground. Solid script, water. Levy waved her hand again, writing the word for water, which doused the burning charcoal. Solid script magic uses words written with magic to manipulate elements or other forces that the caster isn't naturally adept at controlling. In a sense, the words themselves are temporary magical artifacts we create. Once this step is complete, you can use them like holder-type magic. Is that so? Rhodes didn't quite know what to say. He had initially wanted to learn an ability-type magic, but Levy's explanation meant it was halfway like a holder-type. Even with the same kind of magic, everyone experiences it differently. That's just my perspective, Levy said. Anyway, let's start with the basics, writing the words with magic. All right. Rhodes nodded. Since he was already here, he might as well give it a try. Levy explained in detail how to distribute magic power and how to make the magic released from his fingers remain in the air for a short while. Rhodes listened, memorized, and tried it out, asking questions whenever he didn't understand. Anything related to training had to be taken seriously. While the two of them were enjoying a productive lesson in the backyard, there were also 2 pairs of eyes watching them. Jet and Droy were clinging to the frame of the guild's back door, each poking their head out to spy. Jet said indignantly, "Damn, that Rhodes is too sly, using the excuse of learning magic to cling to Levy." Droy said, "But, it was Levy who approached him to teach language first. Whatever, if this goes on, we need to do something to make Levy understand our feelings." Droy thought for a moment. "How about challenging Rhodes to prove we're stronger than him? We've already lost to him right in front of Levy." Jet sighed. "Can you defeat any of his monsters?" Droy patted the pouch of seeds strapped to him. "As long as he doesn't use the Krugs." Jet reminded him, "Rhodes recently got a kind of monster bird. When it flaps its wings, feathers fly everywhere like knives." Droy hesitated. "Then, as long as he doesn't use those birds." Jet continued, "He also has a type of wolf that sneaks up behind you and knocks you over." "Then, as long as he doesn't use those wolves." Jet sighed again. "Might as well ask Rhodes to tie his hands and feet and let you beat him up." Droy himself found it excessive. "What can I do? Who gets this strong after just over a month of training? If there's really no other way, then we'll just have to do that." Jet turned and left. "Hey, Jet, what are you doing?" "I'm just going to get something ready, I'll be right back." Jet activated his speed magic, quickly disappearing from Droy's view. Levy pointed at the word Rhodes had just written, which collapsed at the slightest touch. "Here, your magic power isn't distributed evenly. Try controlling the output speed a bit better." "Got it." Rhodes followed her instructions. This magic was a bit more technical. Even if one wanted to force it with power, it had to be consistent force, and just pushing magic out haphazardly wouldn't work. After some practice, Levy suggested that Rhodes take a break and thoroughly review all his previous mistakes before trying again. Just then, Jet stormed into the backyard like a gust of wind, standing with his hands behind his back in front of Levi, his expression serious. Levi looked puzzled. Jet? What's wrong? Jet said earnestly, Levi, I have something important to say to you. Oh boy. Rhodes silently stepped back, trying to minimize his presence. He felt like there was something worth watching here. Levi seemed to realize something and asked along with Jet's line, what is it? Why so serious all of a sudden? Jet pulled a bouquet of red roses from behind his back, bowing and extending the flowers toward Levi. I like you. Please go out with me. Jet blurted out the entire confession in one breath, then closed his eyes and held his breath, waiting for Levi's answer like a person leaving it all up to fate. Levi looked a bit surprised, hesitated only briefly, then took a step back, clasping her small hands behind her, without accepting the flowers. I'm sorry, Jet. I don't have that kind of feeling for you, but thank you for liking me. Rhodes was surprised to see that despite Levi's usually gentle personality, she was decisive in this situation. From the moment Jet finished speaking to when Levi rejected him, it took just 2 seconds. So that's how it is. Jet struggled to speak. By the time he stood up straight, a stiff smile had appeared on his face. Sorry for troubling you. Jet held the bouquet in one hand. Consider this as an apology or a gift between friends. Levi still didn't reach out, only smiled and shook her head. Jet pulled his hand back, forcing a smile. Right, it's not appropriate. Well, I have something else to do. Jet turned and left, leaving behind a relatively carefree-looking back. Droy, who had been watching secretly, was stunned by Jet's actions. First, he was furious at Jet for stealing the chance, then he was anxious while waiting for Levi's response, and finally, he felt bad for Jet when he got rejected. Of course, among the pain was a slight thrill of now I have a chance. This tiny bit of joy made Droy feel very guilty. They had been best friends since childhood, and right now, he should be by Jet's side. Jet, you, when Droy found the dejected Jet, he couldn't even find words to say. He could completely imagine how upset Jet must be now, and at a time like this, anything he said would be pointless, right? Unexpectedly, Jet turned around and patted Droy's shoulder. It's fine. I was prepared for this outcome. But you, Droy, you go for it. What are you talking about? If you succeed, I'll bless you both. Jet said, we're still best friends. Jet. Chapter 46, of Confessions, Comfort and Curious Origins. Hiding in the corner, hoping to enjoy some drama, Rhodes now felt like the drama wasn't so enjoyable anymore. Levi seemed to be feeling uncomfortable. It was obvious that she was probably worried that this would affect her friendship with Jet. After all, the 3 members of the Shadow Gear team had grown up together since childhood. Hey, Rhodes, Levi asked in a low voice, was I too blunt just now? How would I know? Rhodes had never had a childhood friend, let alone been confessed to by one. All he could do was carefully reply, when it comes to feelings, if you don't like someone, it's probably better to be clear about it like you were, right? I know, but still. Levi understood this principle, which was why she rejected Jet so decisively. She didn't even touch the bouquet, wanting to avoid any misunderstandings. She sighed, I'm just worried that this might break up Shadow Gear. We've always been such good friends. I should have found a gentler way to say it. No matter how gently you put it, the meaning is the same. The longer you drag it out, the more painful it becomes. The situation had already happened, and no matter what the best choice was, Rhodes didn't want to say things like, you did the wrong thing or you really didn't think this through. That would only make Levi feel even more guilty, and it wouldn't help at all. The best choice is the one you just made. Rhodes thought it was important to make her believe that. Only then would she feel a little better. Once she calmed down, he could help her think about what to do next, if she needed that. However, what happened next caught Rhodes completely off guard. Just as Levi seemed to recover a bit of her spirits, Droy showed up with a bouquet of flowers as well. Compared to Jet, Droy's movements were a bit more awkward, but after taking 2 deep breaths, he gathered the courage to say the same words that Jet had just said. This time, it only took Levi 1 second to reject Droy. Droy, looking even more dejected than Jet, dropped the bouquet and left with a downcast expression. Rhodes felt partly responsible. He had just encouraged Levi to believe that rejecting them decisively was the best option for everyone. It took a while before Levi turned around, trying to control her emotions. Let's continue practicing. Rhodes did want to master magic quickly, but under these circumstances, dragging Levy into more lessons seemed a bit. He thought for a moment and said, "Actually, I've used up quite a bit of magic today. Maybe I should rest for a bit. How about I treat you to a drink? Just to thank you for your help." A few minutes later, Rhodes and Levy were sitting at the counter. The two clinked their glasses lightly. Rhodes had barely taken a sip when Levy downed an entire glass like she was possessed by Cana, drinking heartily. Thankfully, it was just regular beer. Myra noticed Levy's red eyes and, pretending to be angry, placed her hands on her hips and asked, "Rhodes, did you bully Levy?" "Absolutely not." Rhodes raised his hand as if swearing, "It's kind of complicated. I don't even know how to explain." "It's not Rhodes' fault. I just don't know what to do anymore," Levy mumbled, her face already flushed from just one beer, her alcohol tolerance clearly not great. She spilled out her frustrations to Myra like a bamboo tube pouring beans, her speech clearly slurred from being tipsy. "Don't worry, Levy," Myra said gently, "you three grew up together and are close friends from the same guild. No matter what happens, that bond won't break so easily. Jet and Droy will recover soon enough." "Really?" "Of course." "In that case, another drink." After her second drink, Levy slumped over the counter and fell asleep, occasionally muttering in her sleep, her arms and legs twitching slightly. If she ever improved her alcohol tolerance, she probably wouldn't be the best drinking companion. Levy was wearing a sleeveless top, and the guild emblem on her left shoulder was quite prominent. Although it was summer, the ceiling fan was spinning above them. Rhodes wondered if he should cover Levy with something, but he didn't have anything at hand. Myra, on the other hand, found a light blanket and gently draped it over Levy. "Rhodes, you've been paying a lot of attention to Levy lately. Could it be that you also?" Myra began teasing again. "It's not like that. Levy's cute, but she's not my type." "Oh? Then what's your type?" Myra's eyes gleamed, as if the flames of gossip were burning within them. Rhodes almost wanted her to experience the discomfort of being the subject of gossip herself, but he knew that patience was important in the long run. "Secret. Secrets make a man more mysterious," Rhodes borrowed a line from a detective anime. "Confessions aren't something you should rush into, especially not after what Jet and Droy had just done." "Ah, that sounds like something Loke would say." Myra chuckled. "Have you two gotten closer?" "Not at all. If I get within 5 meters of him, he runs. These days, when it's his turn to order something, he even asks Loki to place the order for him." Rhodes was rather helpless in this regard. After their failed sparring session, all attempts to ease the tension between him and Loki had been futile. Myra speculated that it had to do with a female celestial spirit mage, and knowing Loki's personality, it probably involved some kind of romantic entanglement. However, she didn't know what kind of painful experience had made him avoid anything related to celestial spirit mages so desperately. Rhodes' approach was simple: if it couldn't be solved, then don't solve it. Even brothers don't always get along. In a guild this big, it was normal to have a few people you couldn't mesh with. As long as it was a fellow guild member, Rhodes figured that when Loki needed help, he'd be there. "Shadow Gear, unite!" Levy suddenly raised her fist and shouted in her sleep. Rhodes readjusted the blanket that had slipped off her. "Looks like she's dreaming about the old days. When did the three of them start teaming up?" "I'm not sure," Myra said thoughtfully. "I remember when I first joined the guild 5 years ago, they were already hanging out together a lot." 5 years ago, you must have been 12 or 13. Joining the guild was practically equivalent to becoming independent, and she had brought her younger brother along. Rhodes felt a pang of sympathy as he listened. "I was 13. It wasn't that early. Natsu joined the guild a year before me, and Erza joined a year before that. Gray, Kana, and Levy joined even earlier." Myra's expression softened with nostalgia. "We were all kids with nowhere to go. Joining the guild was the first time we found stability. By the way, I've never asked what did you do before you came here, Rhodes?" "I was a student," Rhodes replied. "From the time I was 5 years old, right up until a little over a month ago, I was always in school." "Just school for all those years?" Myra looked surprised. When Rhodes nodded, she asked, "Could it be you were some kind of noble or prince?" Chapter 47, Warm, have you gained weight? "It's not that. There are no nobility or royalty in my country. Being able to spend so many years just studying must have been thanks to things like government policies, social order, and productivity. Of course, family support is also very important. Rhodes suddenly fell silent. Except for those first few days after arriving here, he hadn't allowed himself to think about these things, let alone mention them. The guildmaster had told Rhodes that if he traveled more in the future, he might find clues about the spatial magic that brought him here. If he couldn't find anything, then the guild would be his home. Just like Natsu, 6 years had passed since Natsu's foster father, Igneel, had disappeared. Natsu was still searching for any trace of his beloved family, but at the same time, he had found new family. Rhodes didn't know the details of Natsu's circumstances, but it seemed different from his own. He himself might never have a chance to go back. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. A magical, dreamlike world, full of sights waiting to be seen. That's what Rhodes told himself. He then threw himself into work, studying, and training, trying to live a fulfilling life for now and leave those worries behind. Myra found it hard to imagine what kind of country Rhodes was describing. A place with good quality of life and social order that allowed even children from ordinary families to continue their education into adulthood. A place that comfortable without a king or nobles. Was that even possible? She didn't continue asking, as Rhodes had paused when he mentioned family. Before she could offer any comfort, Rhodes drained his drink in one go and stood up, saying, "Please take care of Levy. I'm going back to train for a bit." Myra nodded and simply reminded, "Don't overexert your magic." The days in August were long, and when Rhodes headed home after work, it was still broad daylight. As he walked, he summoned Warm, giving his unreliable little buddy a good, vigorous rub to relieve some stress. Guru Warm made a disgruntled noise, clearly hating the heat and wanting to return to its cooler resting place. "Hold on, aren't you a bit bigger now?" Guru Warm looked up, puzzled. "I think when I first met you, you were a whole size smaller." Rhodes hadn't noticed before since they were together every day, but now, having been apart more often lately, he realized that Warm had grown. "Don't rush off just yet, let me weigh you first. Next time, I'll have a point of reference." Oh, Warm's tiny horns drooped. It felt like its master was just being vengeful, and weighing it was just an excuse. Rhodes. Two familiar figures were waiting on Rhodes' way home. "Jet, Droy? What's up?" Rhodes stopped. Honestly, after witnessing their failed confessions earlier, it felt a bit awkward seeing these two now. Droy stammered, unable to get the words out, but Jet was more direct, "We need to talk to you about Levy." Rhodes thought for a moment. "You want me to keep it secret for you?" Jet denied it, "No way. We just got rejected, there's nothing embarrassing about that." "Actually, keeping it a secret would be best," Droy mumbled, but Rhodes didn't hear, and Jet shot him a glare. Jet got to the point, "Here's the deal." Rhodes summarized, "So, you rushed to confess today because I've been spending time with Levy recently, which made you feel threatened." Droy added, "And she always looks really happy whenever she's around you." "Of course she's happy. Don't any of these people realize how much fun learning is? You guys are overthinking it. Levy is purely enjoying the joy of gaining new knowledge. She genuinely loves anything related to languages." Droy asked uncertainly, "Really?" Rhodes replied, "You grew up with her. Don't you know how much she loves studying languages? Especially ancient ones." Jet looked a bit embarrassed. "Whenever she got into studying that stuff, we were either sleeping or hiding far away." Rhodes rubbed Warm's little horns, speaking firmly. "I'm certain that Levy doesn't have those kinds of feelings for me, and I don't have them for her either. She's just not my type." Jet and Droy looked like they were on the verge of tears, realizing they had made fools of themselves. "If you need to cry, go ahead. Then think carefully about how to handle your relationships with her. Levy did make her rejection pretty clear." Rhodes said goodbye to the two unlucky in-love guys, feeling a sense of relief. Thank goodness neither of them was the pushy type. Otherwise, he might have faced some cliché like, "I won't believe you unless you prove it to me," or, "Beat us, or you can't go near Levy." It was so much easier dealing with people who were straightforward and reasonable. On the way back, Rhodes noticed a small stall selling watermelons packing up for the day. He thickened his skin and brought Warm over, asking the stall owner to weigh it without actually buying a watermelon. "Man, why were watermelons so expensive? Just wait until I make some good money. Then I'll buy 2 at a time, eat one myself, and share the other with the guild. Rhodes quietly noted down Worm's weight, bought some of its favorite snacks, and let it return to the howling abyss to cool off. After work, Rhodes followed his usual routine physical training, punching the sandbag, then showering, doing the minimal housework, and finally sitting at his desk to organize information from magazines. The nearly 60 magazines that Loki had lent him were finished by last week, but he hadn't returned them yet. He had considered making a scrapbook of the interesting clippings, but unfortunately, they weren't his. Rhodes gritted his teeth. He would definitely return them tomorrow. He was currently flipping through 2 weekly magazines from this month that he had bought himself. The price was about the cost of a few beers, still affordable. This week, Sorcerer magazine was introducing a mage guild called Mermaid Heel, which consisted entirely of female members. Supposedly, the guild was quite popular, and many male mages had tried to apply but were rejected. Some stubborn ones kept coming back every day, pestering them. They were eventually knocked out by the members of Mermaid Heel, put in a little dress, heavily made up, and left tied up at the guild's entrance for a whole day and night. After that, it became an unspoken rule among mages that just because Mermaid Heel was full of women, it didn't mean they could be underestimated. And they definitely weren't to be trifled with. The magazine especially highlighted a talented mage named Kagura, whose mastery of both swordsmanship and gravity magic made her stand out among her peers in the guild. She was poised to become a future pillar of Mermaid Heel. The bob haircut and the katana reminded Rhodes of a woman named Raiden May. A past he didn't want to recall. Rhodes figured he had long since outgrown his phase of crushing on 2D characters. He quietly noted down the information about Mermaid Heel and Kagura, put down his notebook, and began his evening meditation. Chapter 48, Developing Poro's Gourmet Dish. The confession incidents involving Levi had, for the time being, not spread very far. Myra, although she loved gossip, still had her limits and didn't want to hurt the feelings between the three. Rhodes continued to learn script magic from Levi while quietly keeping an eye on the trio's reactions. After all, the events had a little something to do with him. Over the next week, both Jet and Droy didn't take any jobs, often huddling in a corner whispering to each other. Jet tried several times to approach Levi to say something, but Droy always pulled him back, discussing how to phrase things without making it awkward. During her breaks, Levi didn't go to them either. Instead, she often sat at the counter talking with Myra. Even then, her gaze frequently wandered over to Jet and Droy, clearly worried about how to break the awkwardness between them. Rhodes wondered whether he should help them speak plainly to one another, but he was afraid it might make things even more awkward. Meanwhile, during one of Levi and Myra's chats, Myra suddenly showed a troubled expression and sighed softly. Levi couldn't help but ask, "Myra, do you have something on your mind?" "Just a little," Myra said, as if it were a natural progression of their conversation. "Lately, it's been so hot, everyone has become a bit lazy, and now we have many uncompleted requests piling up here. If they aren't taken care of soon, the guild's abilities might be questioned." "Oh, is it that bad?" Levi said, feeling guilty. She was one of those who hadn't taken a job in a while. Myra pulled out a request slip from under the counter. "Yes, especially this one. It's for tutoring kids at an orphanage in the neighboring town. If no one takes it soon, the children might be disappointed." Levi glanced subtly at a certain corner of the room and replied, "For tutoring children, wouldn't an ordinary teacher suffice?" Myra explained, "That's because more than half of the kids dream of becoming wizards. The orphanage wants teachers who know magic." Myra's imploring look made Levi unable to feign ignorance. A teaching assignment would suit her well, and considering how much Myra had always looked out for her. After a moment of hesitation, Levi asked, "So, does the client have any specific requirements for the teacher?" "Besides the basic requirements like patience and attentiveness, the client hopes the teacher can teach the children language and history, help them exercise, and play games with them. Ideally, they could also teach some knowledge about plants and gardening." Myra smiled sweetly, as if her plan had come to fruition. "Myra." Levi pouted, "That's practically naming me directly. There's hardly any difference. Did you make this up?" "No joke." Myra showed Levi the request details. "It's clearly written in the client's requirements. Come on, help out with this piled-up request. It's perfect for you. I'll explain things to Jet and Droy myself." It turned out to really be a request tailor-made for her. Levi hesitated a bit longer, but eventually nodded. Myra went to explain things to Jet and Droy, and Rhodes could see their initial stunned expressions turn into happiness. Just then, Levi looked over, and the three's eyes met awkwardly, looking away, then unable to help but look back again. Myra thoughtfully set their meeting time to be at the guild's entrance early tomorrow morning, prompting Jet and Droy to rush home to prepare. Levy approached Rhodes with the request slip. "Sorry, Rhodes, I won't be able to practice with you tomorrow." "It's all right. I've got all the basics memorized already, and I feel bad for occupying your time all the time," Rhodes said. "Good luck with the request, and everything else too." "I'll be off then. Bye-bye." Rhodes accidentally caught sight of the date on the request slip. The request was from yesterday, and the deadline was a week away. So much for piled up for a long time. Tatsuya's mom was right, prettier women are better liars. Myra clasped her hands together apologetically, with a slight playful smile. "Sorry, Rhodes, for taking away your tutor." Rhodes suddenly felt like being playful himself. "Indeed, my heart has suffered a great blow. So, is there any compensation?" Myra blinked. "What kind of compensation are you looking for?" "A lifetime of commitment." Of course, he couldn't say that. Rhodes thought for a moment and said, "I have something I'd like to ask Mr. Cook for help with. Could you come with me, for a bit of moral support?" "Mr. Cook?" Myra looked puzzled. "What do you need from him?" Rhodes explained, "It's about researching a recipe for a nutritious meal to help Worm grow." Rhodes had previously thought of creating a special gourmet dish for Worm, but he lacked the time, cooking skills and motivation, so the idea was put on hold. But discovering recently that Worm might have grown a bit reignited his interest. Maybe a gourmet meal could raise Worm into a Poro king? Right now, the best chef Rhodes knew was Mr. Cook, the guild's head chef. But asking such an esteemed chef to work on pet food might offend him. That's why he wanted Myra to go with him. Any excuse to do something or spend time alone with her. The whole moral support thing was just a pretext. Even if Mr. Cook did get angry, at worst, Rhodes would be chased through a few streets with a cleaver. It wasn't like he'd actually be chopped. Rhodes' little schemes were playing out noisily in his head. Myra agreed without hesitation. To her, Mr. Cook was quite easy to get along with. The two of them walked around the counter and into the hallway, planning to enter the kitchen through the side door. Rhodes summoned Worm. "Take a look and tell me, hasn't Worm grown a bit?" "Long time no see, Worm." Myra held the little white fluff ball in both hands, giving it a light toss to gauge its weight. "It seems like it's gotten a bit bigger." Worm whined, clearly not liking the heat and wanting to go back. Rhodes said, "Hang in there, you can go back in a bit." Myra stroked Worm's heart-shaped belly and smiled, "We'll take you to eat something tasty." Grew. Worm immediately perked up. The scene was like watching two parents, one firm, one soft, soothing an unruly child in just a few words. Myra holding the little Poro looked even gentler. Thankfully, Mr. Cook did not take Rhodes' request as an insult. In fact, he seemed quite interested in this creature called Poro. Worm, however, was terrified. It felt that every glance the man gave it marked a dozen potential butchering spots on its body. It was as if it was one step away from being skinned and tossed into a stew pot. Rhodes did his best to describe the Poro gourmet meal as he remembered it, guessing the possible ingredients. He also listed Worm's usual favorite foods for Mr. Cook's reference. Mr. Cook took notes diligently and said he would start experimenting tomorrow. From Rhodes' description, it seemed like it could be a dish for humans too. Perhaps one day the guild would have a new signature menu item. Chapter 49, Gromp. This month brought an extra expense again. Although Mr. Cook considered researching gourmet dishes as his hobby, Rhodes still felt embarrassed not contributing anything towards the cost of ingredients. However, Worm now had the privilege of entering and leaving the kitchen freely, whenever Mr. Cook wasn't too busy. The only condition was that Worm couldn't touch anything in the kitchen. This was Rhodes' 12th day of learning script magic. Thanks to the task Myra had suggested, the atmosphere among Team Shadow Gear had eased up, and soon they were planning to go on their next job together. Levy, whenever she had free time, came back to tutor Rhodes, while Jet and Droy occasionally stopped by to watch. However, these past 2 weeks had made Rhodes realize just how crucial affinity is. When he first started learning summoning magic, he could almost immediately use it. But with script magic, his progress was far less satisfactory. For instance, when Levy cast fire, a blazing flame emerged, but when Rhodes cast it, it was more like a torch. Similarly, when Levy cast water, it produced a substantial amount of water, with considerable force Rhodes could only manage enough to wash his face. Such a level of skill was clearly not battle-ready, but Rhodes planned to at least learn spells to generate light or wind. At the very least, it would make life more convenient. He wouldn't have to turn on the lights to use the restroom at night, nor bring fire on camping trips. That was something to celebrate, at least. In comparison, progress with summoning magic was as steady as ever. This time, Rhodes felt he could summon a new creature. As usual, he asked the guild master to supervise. It confirmed one thing: being cautious really was the right choice. "Answer my call, Gromp." Almost enough magic power to summon 4 scuttle crabs was sucked away by the pendant, and in the guild's backyard appeared a massive, brown toad. The appearance of this toad could only be described as ugly. It had a huge size that could swallow a person whole, with several purple mushrooms growing on its back, clearly poisonous. Ribbit the toad let out a loud croak, and the ground under its feet turned purple. In the next second, Rhodes felt himself being grabbed by a large hand and pulled back swiftly. The guildmaster appeared in front of him, placing his hand on the ground, emitting a golden light. The Gromp and the ground beneath it were surrounded by a golden magic circle, with golden runes rising up to form a protective barrier. The Gromp seemed to want to leap, but Rhodes ordered it to stay still, and it calmed down. "Guildmaster, what is this?" Rhodes asked. "It's venom. This will prevent it from spreading further." The guildmaster looked at the purple-stained ground and said seriously, "Will it obey your commands like the other creatures?" "It should," Rhodes replied, feeling the connection with the Gromp. "Lift your left front leg." Gromp lifted its paw. "Move 1 step to the left." Gromp obeyed. "Croak once." "Ribbit." "It seems to be fine," the guildmaster said. "Can it take the venom back?" Rhodes ordered, "Retract the venom." No response. Rhodes thought for a moment, "Clean up the venom on the ground." Gromp took a small step back and opened its mouth, taking a bite of the dirt. It chewed, but it looked like it wanted to spit it out and didn't dare to, staring pitifully at Rhodes. At that moment, Rhodes found the Gromp rather cute. Receiving a nod from the guildmaster, Rhodes said, "Spit it out, but gently." The guildmaster observed, and it seemed that the venom on the soil was indeed partially neutralized or absorbed by the Gromp. And when it had moved back, it hadn't contaminated new ground. Makarov thought for a moment, then said, "For now, don't summon it within the guild." "All right." Rhodes nodded and dismissed the Gromp, sending it back to Summoner's Valley. Makarov felt relieved. Rhodes was a cautious kid, and that was a good thing. "Guildmaster, what about this patch of ground?" "I'll ask poor Lyusika for help, maybe she can come up with an antidote. If so, you should carry some with you, just in case. The simplest way would be to scrape off the soil and bury it deep." But long-term solutions were necessary. It wasn't like Rhodes could never summon it again. "Guildmaster, may I accompany you to visit Miss poor Lyusika? I still haven't properly thanked her for before." Back when he had first regained consciousness, communication had been impossible. By the time he had learned the common language, she had already returned home, and he hadn't seen her at the guild since. Rhodes had asked Myra for her address, but she said that poor Lyusika disliked being disturbed. If someone visited her without a good reason, she might chase them off with a broom. Providing an antidote certainly counted as a legitimate reason, right? "Coming along is fine, she might also need to see your Gromp." Makarov waved his hand, and in a flash of light, his casual clothes transformed into formal attire. Rhodes had to admit, the old man looked quite dashing. "Guildmaster, that transformation magic is so cool." "Hee hee." The guildmaster gave a mischievous grin. "What do you think? Want to learn it?" "Yes, yes, yes. When I get the chance, definitely." Outfit transformation is the romance of wizards. Makarov felt gratified. At least this kid had some pursuits beyond getting stronger. He collected some of the poisoned soil in a glass container, sealed it with magic, and called out, "Let's go." Walking down the street with the guildmaster was a first if you didn't count that time he was carried back by him. "How are things in the guild?" "Pretty good. Everyone's very nice, they take care of me and have taught me a lot." Rhodes conveniently left out the part about 2 rude S-class wizards. Everything else had been going well. Just as Makarov was about to smile, Rhodes continued. "Except it can be a bit noisy sometimes, and there are random objects flying by my ear, and people often break things, which makes cleaning up a hassle. but besides that, nothing to complain about. Makarov clutched his chest. Ouch, that stung. When learning the common language, follow Myra or Levy, but don't learn from Erza's way of speaking. Erza had the habit of listing everyone's faults and then adding, "Today I won't bother lecturing you." "Ah, Guildmaster, I was just joking. Don't take it to heart." Rhodes hastily backtracked, not wanting to upset the old man. "Honestly, I think it's nice for the guild to be lively." He quickly tried changing the subject. "By the way, Guildmaster, Miss Porliusica lives in the eastern forest, right? Should we take Scuttle Crab?" Makarov looked at the bustling street. "After we leave the city. We don't want to cause trouble for everyone." "All right. Wait for me, I want to buy something." Rhodes ran over to a fruit stand and came back a few minutes later with a bag of apples and a bag of peaches. It was his first visit. He couldn't go empty-handed. Makarov smiled, not saying anything. "This is where I found you." The two of them rode the Scuttle Crab through the forest until they reached an open space. Makarov pointed at the clearing. Rhodes didn't have much memory of this place. The forest all looked the same to him. Back then, even without that strange beast, he probably would have ended up lost and starving here. Chapter 50, The Price of Power and the Cost of Fear. The area had once shown traces of scattered footprints, but after a few rainfalls in recent days, the specific shapes were no longer discernible. "Guildmaster, you mentioned investigating the beast rampage earlier. Any results?" "Absolutely nothing. Since that incident, there hasn't been a single trace," Makarov replied, glancing at Rhodes. "But I do have a guess now." I do too." Rhodes looked guilty, lowering his voice. "If it turns out the beast rampage was caused by my magic going haywire, how much would I have to compensate?" Seeing Rhodes' worried expression, the Guildmaster chuckled. "No need to compensate at all. This area is unclaimed land. There's no way we'd pay fines to the king over such a trivial matter." Rhodes breathed a sigh of relief, almost facing another financial crisis. They continued deeper into the forest until they arrived at Porliusica's residence, a treehouse. Rhodes looked up at the bright red apples hanging from the surrounding trees, then down at the bag of apples he was holding in his left hand. He suddenly felt a little redundant. "Guildmaster." Rhodes forced a sheepish smile. "Why didn't you say anything earlier?" "Ha ha ha. So you can show this expression too, how amusing." Makarov laughed with a mischievous grin, looking like an old child. After laughing enough, he added, "No matter the gift, it's the thought that counts." Enough noise. The treehouse door burst open roughly. "I could hear your annoying laughter from 100 meters away, Makarov. Can't you be quiet for once?" Makarov greeted her with a smile. "What's wrong with being lively every now and then? It must get pretty lonely living all by yourself here, right?" Porliusica looked at Rhodes. "Your injuries should have healed long ago, right?" Rhodes quickly replied, "Yes, they have. I heard that you value peace and quiet, so I didn't dare come to disturb you. I really appreciate your help and care." Porliusica seemed surprised by Rhodes' fluent common language but didn't ask further. She just said, "If you know, then hurry up and leave." "I told you, I hate humans. Don't be so harsh. This kid wanted to thank you in person, so I brought him here," Makarov said. "Look, he even brought a gift for you." Porliusica's eyes immediately landed on the bag of bright red apples, and she glared at Makarov. "Humph, fools raise fools." She turned around and went inside, but left the door open. Rhodes felt a bit awkward at her words. However, Makarov knew that her HMMPH wasn't aimed at Rhodes, but at himself for pulling a prank on the kid knowing there were already apple trees here. "Don't take it to heart, that's just how she talks." Makarov had gotten used to Porliusica's way of expressing herself. "Come on in. If she leaves the door open, it means she's inviting us in." "Is she, Tsundere?" No, that's too disrespectful." Rhodes silently scolded himself for disrespecting his benefactor, following the Guildmaster into the treehouse. The interior of the treehouse was not spacious, and the furnishings were quite basic, with almost no space to walk once inside. The floor was filled with pots of medicinal herbs and bottles of various potions. The room contained only a bed, a desk, shelves, and cabinets carved into the walls, and one single wooden stool. Rhodes looked around, unsure of where to put his things. Porliusica eyed the jar in Makarov's hand. "You're here because of what you're holding, right?" Makarov nodded, "Yes. This is some soil contaminated with venom, and I wanted you to see if there's a way to deal with it. Poor Lyusika immediately asked, has anyone in the guild been poisoned? No, just a precaution. Makarov explained the incident, and ended by complimenting Rhodes, this kid is very cautious. Humph, another fool chasing nothing but power. With disdain on her face, poor Lyusika took out a petri dish, placed some of the contaminated soil inside, and added one potion after another. Rhodes wasn't bothered by her attitude. This elderly lady had probably experienced something that made her speak this way, maybe a companion who had hurt themselves while over-pursuing power. After a series of professional tests, poor Lyusika confirmed the effects of the venom. A contact-type venom, which rapidly penetrates the skin once touched. Initially, there will be a stinging sensation, followed by numbness, and eventually slowed movement. With prolonged exposure, the venom will damage internal organs, potentially leading to death in severe cases. Low temperatures can slow the spread, and after baking at high temperatures, the toxicity decreases somewhat. The gas released, when inhaled in small amounts, doesn't seem to have noticeable effects. Once her analysis was complete, poor Lyusika took them outside and instructed Rhodes to summon Gromp. She needed to collect more venom samples, secretions from the toad's mouth, and samples from the mushrooms on its back. Come back in a few days for the antidote. In the meantime, don't use that creature recklessly. Yes, thank you. No need for your thanks. Makarov got himself into this mess, let him deal with it. Oh, all right. Rhodes initially wanted to say that it was his own mess, but the more he thought about it, the more something felt off. Perhaps she was referring to himself as the mess, making the guild master the one who picked up the trouble? Seems there's no arguing that point. On the way back, Rhodes wore a troubled expression. Makarov asked, are you bothered by what poor Lyusika said? Not really. Miss poor Lyusika, how should I put it? Although she's always complaining, she takes what you ask her to do very seriously. She's probably one of those people with a harsh exterior but a soft heart. Rhodes shook his head, I was worrying about something else. I think I've gone over my monthly budget again. Buying the gift, paying for the poro delicacy ingredients, adding some clothes recently, plus a few pieces of workout equipment. Money always seemed to slip through his fingers without him realizing it, and payday was still nearly 2 weeks away. Back in his old life, simply skipping breakfast each day would have solved it, but now it wasn't possible. Skipping breakfast would definitely affect training. You know, it's about time you tried taking on some requests yourself. Makarov said with some helplessness. If this goes on, you'll end up like Nab. Nab was even more determined than Rhodes. He wasn't willing to work as a waiter. Actually, I've been wanting to try, but city jobs paid by the hour may not even compare to the guild tavern. And jobs outside the city. Rhodes looked conflicted, I feel like I'm not strong enough yet. Going out just doesn't feel safe. Being cautious is good, but at this point, more than half the people in the guild aren't your match. The guild master sighed, have a bit more faith in yourself. You're quite strong. Magic comes from the power of one's heart. If you can't even believe in yourself, your magic will weaken. Rhodes was startled, so, does that mean that even if I train hard, there's still a chance I might weaken once I'm out there? Is that really the point? Makarov couldn't help but scold Rhodes, when we get back, ask Myra to help you pick a suitable task. Makarov suspected that Rhodes might have some lingering trauma from being attacked by that beast. He needed to go out, build some confidence, and gain some knowledge beyond what books could provide. Okay. Rhodes reluctantly nodded. Logically thinking, the guild master had no reason to lie to him or mislead him. Maybe it was time to go out and explore? To be safe, he would ask Myra to pick an easy task, and preferably join a team for it. Chapter 51, Analysis. Myra had just registered a task for Macau when she heard the guild master explain the situation. So, guild master, you convinced Rhodes to take on a job by exploiting his financial troubles again. Don't make it sound like I'm trying to drive him out. But yes, that's basically it, Makarov said. Help him choose a suitable one. Myra looked at Rhodes. What kind of task are you interested in, Rhodes? Preferably something with a high safety factor, a little bit of traveling but not too far, and it shouldn't take too long. Oh, and the pay should be. Rhodes paused. Am I asking for too much? Oh, so you know. Makarov sighed as he nimbly hopped off the counter. Whatever, you two figure it out. Rhodes felt like a graduate attending his first job interview. What seemed like a normal job to the guildmaster felt overwhelming to Rhodes, who was anxious about not knowing the details what exactly was involved, and what if he couldn't do it well. Actually, you don't have to take the guildmaster's words too seriously. Myra didn't want to pressure Rhodes into taking on a job. To her, it wouldn't hurt to train a bit longer. Everyone in the guild is free to choose their own path. Even Nab, for example, is never forced by the guildmaster to go out. I don't want to end up like that, and I can't keep living off loans forever, Rhodes replied. Please help me pick one that suits my abilities. With enough preparation, I should be fine. Alright. Myra saw Rhodes train every day and was quite familiar with his strength. Still, for a first job, it was best to get familiar with the process while building experience, something that also took care of a newcomer. Myra pulled out a task sheet. How about this one? Rhodes looked at it. The top of the task sheet read wanted, and below that, it was completely blank. It's empty. Yep. There was a request that came in today, and I haven't had time to write it down yet. Myra picked up a pen and began to write carefully on the counter. A request from today? That must have been posted while I was out with the guildmaster. Rhodes watched her pen move, and neat lines of words began to appear. Escort mission, escort the client to the capital of Fiori Kingdom, Crocus, and return safely. Reward, 20,000 J. Scheduled departure time, 8 am, August 23rd. Request date, August 22nd. To Crocus. Crocus, the capital of Fiori Kingdom, also known as the flower-blooming capital, was the most prosperous city in the country. Of course, Rhodes had learned about such important facts. To reach Crocus from Magnolia, you could take a carriage west and arrive on the same day. Traveling by canal was even faster. Importantly, whether by road or waterway, the usual route was essentially the equivalent of a public highway, making it safe for ordinary civilians to travel back and forth without worry. The safety rating was quite high. In other words, if the client needed a mage escort despite traveling along such a safe route, it meant someone was targeting the client. Either their life or their belongings. This would add a lot of uncertainty and potential danger to the journey. Rhodes pondered that he needed to understand why the client was being targeted before deciding whether to accept the job. However, just as he was working through his analysis, Myra's pen made a light stroke, writing the final line. Client, Myra Jane Strauss. Rhodes looked up, stunned. Hey. Myra smiled at him. Hey, what? Myra, this. Rhodes didn't know what to say. Was this about creating a task since there wasn't a suitable one? Myra explained, I do need to go to the Crocus tomorrow, and I was thinking of finding someone to go with me. You only have to say it, and people willing to accompany you would line up from the counter to the door. Oh, you're such a sweet talker. Myra laughed, then asked, so, Rhodes, are you one of them? Of course, since you've taken care of me so much. Rhodes nodded. There's no need to make it an official request. Myra raised a finger and gently waved it. Don't worry. In general, when inexperienced newcomers take on their first task, the guild arranges for a senior mage to accompany them. This is to help newcomers get familiar with the work process and handle any emergencies. In my case, I guess I qualify as a senior mage. While I can't fight, if you have any questions during the mission, you can ask me. So, Fairy Tale Mage Rhodes, will you accept this task? I accept. Rhodes smiled. He couldn't refuse a kind gesture, though it did make him feel a bit like he was getting preferential treatment. In my capacity as the guildmaster's assistant, I hereby approve your acceptance of this task. Myra said this in a very official-sounding tone on purpose. She took out a stamp, pressed it onto the task sheet, and then filled in some information in the logbook. This meant that the task had been officially approved by the guild and was formally assigned to Rhodes. Myra handed the stamped task sheet to Rhodes. All right, now you can take this and go meet with your client, Miss Myra Jane Strauss, to confirm the task details. Rhodes took the task sheet, his gaze pausing on the red stamp for a moment, then looked up at his client. Myra's gaze met his, and she instantly switched to a very girlish expression and tone. Oh my, are you the fairy tale mage assigned to my request? I'm terribly sorry, but could I confirm your identity by seeing your task sheet and guild emblem? She even used honorifics. How into character could she get? Rhodes nodded mechanically, handing back the task sheet he had just received, then rolled up his left sleeve to show the emblem. It is indeed a fairy tale mage. I apologize for my rudeness just now. Myra placed her hands together and gave a slight, apologetic bow. After hesitating for a moment, Rhodes decided to play along. No need to be so formal, Miss Myra Jane. You're headed to Crocus, right? Have you already planned out the itinerary? Myra, like an ordinary girl, replied cautiously. Yes, the original plan was to depart by boat tomorrow morning and arrive in the afternoon. I'll need to stay overnight in Crocus, then return by carriage the next morning, arriving back in Magnolia by evening. Sir Mage, do you have any suggestions? Rhodes felt uncomfortable being called Sir Mage in such a pitiful tone. Please, don't call me that. I have no objections to the itinerary, I just wanted to understand why did you feel the need to hire an escort? Are you being targeted by someone? Myra shook her head. No, not at all. I just think it's not very safe for a girl to travel alone, so I'm relying on you for safety. All right, I accept. Rhodes gave her a questioning look. Was that good enough? Myra returned to her usual gentle smile and extended her hand. 50 points, not a pass. What? Myra cleared her throat. Now, it's time for Senior Mage Marajana's guidance. Chapter 52, A Little Bit of Preparation. First of all, your attitude at the beginning was too rigid. It might give a bad impression to the client or even scare them, affecting the guild's reputation. Sorry. Rhodes admitted, realizing his initial stiffness. Second, you showed the task sheet without confirming the client's identity first. At the very least, you should have asked for the client's name. That made sense. Rhodes hadn't thought about that. He just assumed she was the client. She really was, though. After some self-reflection, Rhodes understood that Myra wasn't just having fun, maybe, but was actually teaching him the proper process of dealing with clients. And third, the payment details might be incorrect or subject to last-minute changes, which can easily lead to disputes. It's important to confirm it in person. Got it. Rhodes nodded, then added, thank you for the guidance, Miss Myra Jane. Monotone. Myra took the opportunity to act important. Not bad. I'll give you 10 extra points. You barely passed. Rhodes was about to say something when he heard Lockie's voice. She deliberately imitated Rhodes in a mocking tone, thank you, Miss Myra Jane. Ha ha ha. Lockie and part-time waitress Sally burst into laughter. Hey! Rhodes felt his ears burn. Hearing someone mimic him was incredibly embarrassing. Myra, however, kept her expression unchanged. Lockie, Sally, I'll be counting on you two to manage the bar tomorrow and the day after. Sally replied, don't worry. I'll get Izu to help too. Lockie chimed in, yeah, Myra, just go on your date without worries. Myra corrected her, it's work. Yes, Lockie and Sally laughed as they walked away with drinks for customers. Rhodes wasn't too bothered by their harmless teasing. By the way, I never asked what's your business in the capital. Weekly Sorcerer is hosting a 15th anniversary celebration in Crocus, Myra explained. I received an invitation and will be attending the evening event. I might even perform, maybe sing a song or something. Oh, I get it. It's like those big company anniversaries where they invite celebrities to perform, create a lively atmosphere, boost morale, and build influence. I'll go get a bit of preparation done then, Rhodes said. About the boat. I've already booked the boat, and we can rent a carriage in Crocus, Myra replied. You just need to prepare for the trip. Definitely feels like this is disguised as a mission, or maybe it's more like a newbie tutorial. You're making me look like an unnecessary escort. Myra replied, escort missions are supposed to be like this. If nothing happens, there's absolutely nothing to worry about. Relax a little. Luckily my common language skills have improved, or else I wouldn't understand a word you're saying. But wait, I can't rule out the possibility of unexpected situations. Rhodes decided he'd better stay vigilant tomorrow. There were still a few things he needed to prepare. The next day, Rhodes and Myra met at the guild and departed on time. Today, Myra wore a white long-sleeve blouse with a slim tie of the same color as an accent, giving her a simple yet elegant look. She paired it with a yellow A-line skirt that concealed the bottom of her blouse, perfectly highlighting her slim waist. She also had a small crossbody bag in a color similar to the skirt, hanging by her side. She wore light pink high-heeled thong sandals that made her small feet and exposed ankles look even more delicate. After leaving the guild, Rhodes naturally took Myra's suitcase, freeing her hands so she could put on the beige sun hat she was holding. As Myra adjusted her hair beneath the hat, she casually asked, "So, how does it feel to be going on your first long trip? Are you nervous?" Rhodes answered, "With senior mage Miss Myra Jane Strauss accompanying me, I'm not nervous at all." Myra chuckled. Then client Miss Myra Jane Strauss is reassured. The two of them playfully revisited yesterday's internal joke as if it were a tongue twister, chatting and laughing along the way. Myra noticed that Rhodes occasionally shifted his large backpack to adjust its weight and asked, "Speaking of which, what's in that big backpack? It seems heavier than my suitcase." Rhodes answered, "A few essentials for the trip. I'll show you when we get on the boat. There's something for you as well." "Really? I'll look forward to it, then." In Magnolia, there was no need to go out of the way to find a pier. The boat Myra booked was waiting by a small bridge along the canal. It was a covered boat that could fit about 4 or 5 people inside. The boatman appeared friendly, a middle-aged man wearing a straw hat, his face weathered by the sun and wind. Rhodes handed over Myra's suitcase first, jumped aboard with his backpack, then turned to support Myra by the arm. Myra grabbed his arm and used his support to steady herself on the boat. "Thank you. We'll be in your care," Myra said to the boatman before bending over to enter the cabin with Rhodes, sitting across from each other. "All right, please hold on tight, we're off." The boatman called out, untied the rope, and pushed the boat away from the shore, letting it drift along with the current. Hidden under the boat, out of the boatman's view, a crab was swimming swiftly ahead, always maintaining a distance of about 500 to 600 meters in front of the boat. Rhodes had summoned the crab to scout ahead. Before meeting Myra at the guild, he'd already released the crab into the canal. Before they departed, Rhodes used the crab's perspective to observe the boatman for quite a while but found nothing suspicious. Now Rhodes continued to have the crab scan the way for any signs of river pirates, aquatic creatures, or other potential threats. While traveling, it was better to be cautious. After using the crab's vision to examine the water surface and depths for a while, Rhodes refocused his attention. Myra sat with her legs together, in a ladle-like posture, her sun hat now placed beside her. She was curiously examining Rhodes's large backpack, probably suspecting that he'd caught Erza's habit of carrying a ridiculous amount of luggage. "Here, let's take a look at what I brought." Rhodes opened the backpack, revealing several crystal orbs. Myra's curiosity quickly turned into shock. "Are those explosive magic crystals?" Explosive magic crystals were single-use magical tools. As the name implied, they exploded. They were like hand grenades but far more powerful. "Yep, I specially borrowed them from the guild's inventory." "Why did you borrow something like this?" "Because I'm not good at offensive magic, and summoning creatures might not be fast enough, so I brought these just in case." Rhodes took 2 crystals and put them in Myra's hands. "You take 2 for self-defense as well. If anything happens, throw them hard. We probably won't need them." Myra tried to maintain her smile, realizing what he meant by preparations. However, Rhodes had more surprises in store. He pushed aside a few of the crystal balls and pulled out a book from underneath. "And I've also got a magic book. Once opened, you can activate the spell on each page by injecting a little magic power. We each take one with us." "A magic book too?" Rhodes continued rummaging through his bag. "And there's more." Meanwhile, the boatman controlling the direction of the boat at the stern was trembling in fear. Chapter 53, The Chariot. Myra held 2 magic crystals in her hands, with a magic book resting on her lap. She looked at the things in Rhodes' bag and said helplessly, "Rhodes, all these things you've prepared could easily blow up a small village. We're just going to attend a celebration." "When I borrowed these items, the guild master said the same thing," Rhodes thought for a moment before saying, "I just feel safer this way. I even asked the guild master if he could help draw some defensive magic circles on me, but he said there was no such thing and kicked me out of the storage room." Sigh. "Well, I think I can understand the guild master's feelings," Myra said, half wanting to return the items. After some thought, she kept one small magic crystal in her bag. "Thank you for putting in so much effort to prepare all of this. I feel safer than ever this time." Rhodes regretfully packed the crystal balls that Myra handed back to him. "This is all just a necessity. Once I become as strong as Natsu or Erza, I won't need these anymore." "Wait, you didn't prepare anything else, did you?" Myra asked, sounding a little worried. "It's nothing special, just 2 scuttle crabs, Rhodes lowered his voice and leaned closer to her ear. One is scouting ahead, and another is hiding at the bottom of the boat. If anything happens, I'll pick you up and jump off the boat immediately. Thank you. Myra started to worry about what would happen if Rhodes took on an actual escort mission in the future. If they got attacked, she glanced at Rhodes' backpack. Yeah, let's hope the attackers survive. Oh, besides physical preparations, I also did something a bit more metaphysical, Rhodes said. Myra kept smiling, patiently listening to him. Since everyone says that Kana's fortune-telling is accurate, I asked her for a reading yesterday. Rhodes had never been superstitious before, except when he played games that involved gotcha draws. But now he was in a world filled with magic prophecies, fortune-telling, and the like were real magic here. And it was free, so why not believe it a little? Myra became interested. What did the reading say? It was the chariot of victory that overcomes all obstacles, Rhodes said. Kana explained that the chariot symbolizes never giving up, overcoming difficulties through perseverance and eventually achieving success. If it's a reading about a trip, then it means great fortune. If it's a work-related reading, it means that you, confident and rational, will instill more confidence in your client. That sounds great, doesn't it? Myra said. If the fortune says it's lucky, why did you still prepare so many defensive weapons? Because it said I needed to overcome obstacles and remain rational to succeed. Rhodes pointed to his backpack. Is this rational enough? Too rational, Myra sighed lightly. As the client, I feel very confident that you'll successfully complete this mission. That's good then. I'll be a bit more vigilant, Rhodes said, connecting to the perspectives of the two scuttle crabs. His mind felt like it had split screens. He carefully observed every passing boat and every pedestrian on the shore. Seeing Rhodes like this, Myra recalled the guildmaster's instructions. The purpose of this trip was to help Rhodes relax a bit, but carrying some consumable magic items for self-defense was one thing, but was there anyone who went on a trip constantly using magic to scout? He even thought of getting his fortune told beforehand. However, in a way, this was good. If she had been half as cautious as Rhodes back then, maybe Lysina wouldn't have. Compared to her former reckless, overly confident self, it might actually be safer to team up with someone like Rhodes. Lysina's face appeared in her mind, and Myra hugged her own arms, thinking, it was all my fault. Myra, Myra. Rhodes' voice snapped her out of her thoughts. Sorry, I zoned out. Did you notice something? Myra asked. Nothing suspicious, just wondering if it's cold in the cabin. Seeing Myra hugging her arms, Rhodes pulled out a jacket from his backpack. Good thing I brought this too. It was the only jacket Rhodes had. Truthfully, if he wanted, he could have stuffed all of his clothes into his backpack, not that he had many. Thank you. Myra didn't refuse and draped the jacket over herself. The scent of sunlight on it gave her a sense of warmth. Amid sadness, feeling the care of her companion was the best comfort. It's not even noon yet, but the cabin may be a bit damp. Do you want me to make a fire for you? Rhodes asked. His finger traced through the air, with each letter forming large magic symbols spelling fire in midair. It then shrank to the size of a fist, transforming into a small flame. Seeing this contrast, Myra couldn't help but laugh. This was the first time Rhodes showed her his solid script magic, and it turned out like this. Finally, the boatman in the back couldn't bear it anymore. Don't play with fire in the cabin. What was wrong with this guy? Not only did he bring a bag full of explosives, but he was also playing with fire in the cabin? Was he really not afraid of causing an explosion? Sorry, sorry. Rhodes waved his hand, making the flame disappear. The boat continued downstream, and as the sun rose higher, the air gradually became stifling despite the shade provided by the boat's canopy. This was why they were taking a boat instead of traveling on scuttle crabs. It would still take some time to reach Crocus. Myra opened her suitcase and took out a lunchbox. I made some sandwiches this morning if you don't mind, let's eat together. Although the taste might not compare to Mr. Cook's. You can cook. Rhodes trailed off. Well, of course, it was only natural. He remembered the time Myra shopped for Cook, it probably wasn't Cook lowering his standards, it was because Myra was actually good at it. Don't underestimate me. I raised Elfman on my own. Myra handed a sandwich to Rhodes. Actually, Elfman is also quite good at cooking. Rhodes accepted the sandwich. He actually brought some bread, but At a time like this, even a fool would know which to choose. He could always give the bread to warm later. Elfman? Knows how to cook. Rhodes tried to imagine Elfman wearing an apron, but it was impossible to picture. Is it that hard to believe? Myra laughed. I told you, Elfman is a gentle soul. She had said that before, but Rhodes thought it was just a big sister defending her brother's image. He gave a sheepish smile and took a bite of the sandwich. What's wrong? Does it taste bad? Myra checked the lunchbox. The preservation magic should still be effective. No, it's not that, it just tastes familiar. Rhodes chewed thoughtfully. It's delicious, and different from what I usually eat at the guild. Myra smiled. As long as you like it. I was worried you might be too used to cook's food to like mine. Ah, so that's what it is. That sandwich from that day was hers too. Rhodes remembered waking up that day, the taste on his tongue was the same, and the smile before his eyes was the same too. Chapter 54, Duty, Deception, and a City in Bloom. Eating and resting are often the times when it's easiest to be attacked by enemies, and Rhodes knew this well. So, during their meal and the subsequent sleepy period, he remained extra vigilant. He ordered the crabs to patrol the canal diligently, occasionally extending their feelers to observe the situation on the shore more clearly. Amidst such tension, they finally arrived at their destination. The boatman maneuvered the boat to the shore and said, "Up ahead is Crocus. My boat isn't authorized to navigate freely within the capital, so please disembark here. Thank you for your hard work." "Thank you." One thanked him for his hard work, the other thanked him. The boatman watched as Rhodes placed the luggage ashore and then helped Myra disembark. After pushing the boat away from the shore with an oar, he quickly rowed away, eager to distance himself from these two dangerous individuals. Too thrilling, these two were carrying enough dangerous items to destroy a small village. When he booked the boat yesterday, he thought the young lady was beautiful, but today he didn't dare look at her twice. Living is good. Next time he encounters mages from fairy tale, he must be extra cautious. Rhodes looked at the quickly departing boat with confusion. Isn't he going to take on more passengers or transport some goods for the return trip? Seems like a waste. Myra adjusted her sun hat and gave a squeeze to the small crystal ball in her bag. She looked at Rhodes with a smile. "Yeah, I wonder why." Compared to Magnolia, Crocus felt more like a grand city. The entire city was built on relatively flat high ground, surrounded by thick walls. A river flowed in from the southwestern gate, reaching the inner city, specifically the moat outside the palace walls. The water then flowed out through the southeast drain, tumbling off the high ground into a small waterfall. Rhodes and Myra arrived from the east and could see the rainbow glimmering mist that enveloped the waterfall. "It's beautiful." Myra couldn't help but stop and admire it. "It is, but it doesn't match the city walls," Rhodes commented. He wanted to say the outflow resembled a drainage pipe, but felt that would ruin the atmosphere. He dismissed the two standby crabs back to the Summoner's Rift. "Scuttle crabs wouldn't be able to sneak in, so I'll summon them again once we're inside." Myra stopped Rhodes from continuing his intense scouting efforts. It'd be too conspicuous to summon wild creatures in the city. This is the capital, there's no need to worry about security. Just relax. All right. Rhodes didn't insist further. His main concern was whether the guards would confiscate all the dangerous items he was carrying at the gate. As it turned out, he was worrying too much. The guards only asked a few questions about their identities and purpose. Once Rhodes showed his guild emblem and Myra presented her invitation, they were immediately allowed through. This lax security check made Rhodes doubt how good the public security here could actually be. Then again, Fiori had been a neutral nation for over 160 years, with no internal uprisings and stable royal power. Perhaps they simply lacked a sense of crisis. The streets of the capital were filled with flower beds, and every window of the houses was adorned with flower pots, while small, meticulously maintained gardens decorated each doorstep. That's why this place was called the flower-blooming capital. The air was filled with the scent of flowers, making it a paradise for allergy sufferers. Of course, this was a magical world, so perhaps they had ways to handle such allergies. Rhodes carefully surveyed their surroundings. "So, what's next?" "Miss Myra Jane Sr." "Humph, according to senior experience, we should head to the inn first." Myra shook the invitation she'd used as their pass. The magazine already arranged it. Whether it was because Rhodes' gaze was too intense or not, they encountered no trouble or unwanted attention on their way. Their destination was the Crocus Garden Hotel, one of the best hotels in the capital. Looking at the beautiful fountains and towering building, Rhodes noted that its size was almost comparable to the Magnolia Cathedral. Quite impressive. Does the magazine have that much money? Rhodes asked. Of course. After all, Sorcerer is the most popular magazine these days, Myra replied. The two walked into the lobby, where they were warmly welcomed by the staff. A well-groomed male attendant offered to carry their luggage as he led the way to their room. Rhodes politely refused, worried that this guy might unintentionally cause the hotel to go up in flames. This is your room. Please keep your key safe. If you need anything during your stay, don't hesitate to ask. Have a pleasant stay. The attendant opened the door softly, handed the key to Myra, and then bowed as he left. Rhodes blinked. One room. Well, the magazine didn't know I was bringing a companion, so they only booked one room. What should we do? Myra showed a troubled expression, placing one hand on her collar, her voice suddenly sounding vulnerable. Rhodes wouldn't take advantage of this situation, would he? Something like a late-night attack. Devious. Drama queen. Rhodes, the righteous gentleman, immediately put Myra's suitcase down. I'll go book another room. Just kidding, it's a suite. We each get a room. I was joking too. I definitely couldn't afford this kind of hotel. Myra sighed with a smile. Blame Kana. Rhodes isn't as fun as before. How much do you enjoy seeing others embarrassed? Rhodes said. Does that mean I should thank Kana? Honestly, Kana never treated her comrades differently, especially once she got drunk she'd sling her arm around anyone without a second thought. At first, Rhodes wasn't used to it, but as time passed, they became good friends. Embarrassed? Not unless she caught him in a headlock, unless she was wearing armor. Rhodes? What are you doing? Myra had just finished putting her suitcase in her chosen room when she saw Rhodes moving around checking the bathroom, kitchen, and living room. I'm checking for any surveillance magic crystals, Rhodes replied. In case there are any perverted journalists trying to get the scoop on you. That's... Myra actually thought it was possible. She found that Rhodes was indeed very qualified as a bodyguard. They carefully checked every corner but found nothing suspicious. Myra asked, the celebration starts tonight. Should we rest first? Rhodes glanced at the small bag hanging at Myra's waist and the sun hat in her hands. It was obvious she wanted to go out. Stretching his arms, he said, after sitting on the boat all day, I want to stretch my legs. How about you? Myra smiled. Since we're here, I'd love to explore the capital a bit. Want to come along? Of course. I'm your bodyguard after all. I'll follow the client's orders. Chapter 55, A Deadly Question. Oh, isn't this Myra Jane? So, you received an invitation too. Rhodes hadn't even left the suite when he heard a rather flirty female voice in the hallway. He rushed out in 3 quick steps, positioning himself in front of Myra, holding the pendant in one hand and raising an explosive magic crystal in the other. Standing before them was a girl with long golden waves, wearing a purple low-cut wrap dress, her face delicate yet with a sharper edge compared to Myra. At the moment, the girl looked visibly startled seeing Rhodes suddenly appear. Who are you? No, wait, she looked at the dangerous item in Rhodes' hand. What do you mean by that? Wait, Rhodes. Myra hurriedly grabbed Rhodes' right hand, afraid he might throw the explosive magic crystal. She's not an enemy, she's Jenny from Blue Pegasus, and she's also a Sorcerer magazine model. Sorry, Jenny. This is my companion Rhodes, a bit of a misunderstanding because you showed up suddenly. Myra only introduced Rhodes after making sure he put away the dangerous items. Oh, I remember now. Jenny realized, the face of Blue Pegasus. Rhodes had gathered information on this person in his notes. Since she belonged to the same guild as Hibiki, Rhodes had paid a little extra attention. Like Myra, she wasn't known for her combat prowess but was highly famous as a model. Currently, she topped the list of most wanted mage as a girlfriend. However, recently Myra's popularity had soared, posing a slight threat to Jenny's ranking, though Myra didn't care much about such superficial lists. My apologies, I'm a bit on edge, that was quite rude of me. Rhodes apologized for having pulled out a hand grenade. It's beyond rude, isn't it? That's an explosive magic crystal, right? It definitely is. Jenny looked like she was about to lose her cool. Who in their right mind would suddenly pull out an explosive magic crystal in a hotel? She had heard rumors that people from fairy tale were reckless, but this was beyond expectation. Rhodes frowned, something didn't feel right. When the magic crystal was pointed at her, she made no move to react, was her awareness that low. And afterward, she merely complained without any sign of preparing for either attack or defense. Was this reasonable behavior? I'm really sorry, I was just a bit paranoid from traveling, Rhodes continued to apologize, and with Myra gently explaining, Jenny's anger soon subsided. I'll let it go. Rhodes nearly threw the explosive magic crystal in her face, yet Jenny brushed it off so lightly. She seemed genuinely unconcerned and even brought the conversation back on track immediately. Anyway, you're here for the Sorcerer magazine anniversary celebration, right? Yes, I assume you are as well. Of course. Jenny suddenly became full of energy. Tonight, I'll be presenting the best fashion show, and I'll definitely beat you. Myra responded unhurriedly, oh, but isn't tonight just a celebration? There won't be any judging, right? Too naive. Jenny pulled out a small fan from who knows where and pointed it dramatically. Sorcerer magazine is releasing a special issue for its 15th anniversary, and we invited guests will definitely be featured in it. And then, I will beat you with absolute popularity and hold my position as number one. Myra showed an expression of sudden realization, I see. Well, good luck. Jenny's energy instantly deflated, and she said, somewhat frustrated, what kind of attitude is that? Get serious, will you? Unfortunately, I don't plan to do a fashion show today, so I can't compete with you. Myra wasn't particularly interested in photo shoots or modeling, she only did it as a part-time job by invitation. Being ranked on that chart was just an accident, she didn't care about it. Well then, we have some things to do. See you tonight. Myra smiled and bid her goodbye, then turned to Rhodes. Let's go. Wait, you. Jenny stomped her feet in frustration. Doesn't she have a strong competitive spirit? Perhaps so, I've only met her twice, Myra said. So, what do you think? Is she prettier in person than in the magazines? A deadly question. Rhodes thought for a moment. Well, I didn't really notice because she was just too strange. Strange? Yet, when she saw a stranger pull out an explosive magic crystal, shouldn't she have immediately run away or taken me down? Why did she just stand there frozen? She's a mage too, right? Such a low sense of danger, is that really okay? Myra wasn't sure how to respond normally, no one would expect a stranger to suddenly pull out an explosive magic crystal. Moreover, Jenny was a famous beauty, shouldn't someone seeing her get excited and rush over for a handshake or autograph? Judging by Rhodes' reaction, he clearly recognized her, but his attitude never changed at all. As Myra pondered, Rhodes realized something troubling. Does that mean I'm the weird one? Myra suddenly stopped, clasped her hands together in a prayer gesture, tilted her head slightly towards the guild's direction, and said, thank goodness, Master, your goal is finally accomplished. Myra, Rhodes reminded her, the Master is still alive. That's not the point. The Master specifically pushed you out to take on a mission so you'd learn that normal mages live more relaxed lives like Jenny. They don't necessarily need immense power, they don't need to carry enough firepower to blow up a village when traveling. After thinking for a moment, Myra added, of course, being cautious during a mission is important. Even if you went a bit overboard today, it does provide a different sense of safety. I get it. Rhodes said, thank you, and thanks to the Master as well. In the future, well, I'll observe a bit more. Myra. That works too. Just the fact that he was willing to leave Magnolia was already a good start. Perhaps after more experience with missions, he'd naturally ease into normal behavior, right? With the scent of flowers filling the air, they strolled through the streets, watching people come and go, enjoying the birdsong and flower fragrance. The grand palace at the city center couldn't be entered freely, but seeing it up close was good enough. Myra calculated the time and suggested, it's still early. Why don't we head to the shopping street? Since we're here, I'd like to buy some clothes for Elfman. Sure. Rhodes didn't mind where they went, but he did feel a bit envious of Elfman having an older sister like that. Must be nice. Though she often watched Elfman get beaten up in fights without intervening, though she laughed when the Master slapped Elfman into the ground. Well, that's how older sisters are, right? Chapter 56, Showdown. Look, I get it, but why are you following us? Seeing Jenny had entered the same clothing store as them, Rhodes couldn't help but want to pull out his explosive magic crystal again. A stalker, right? Maybe a small explosion wouldn't be a problem? It was a big problem, and Myra quickly held down Rhodes' bag to prevent him from actually acting on it. Jenny, are you here to buy clothes too? Myra asked. Jenny didn't hide it at all. No, I came specifically to find you. Is there something else you need? Myra asked. Of course, I want to settle this once and for all. Jenny said. Even if we can't compete at the anniversary celebration, I still want to beat you here and now. Rhodes glanced around. Quite a few people had already started looking their way, there was nothing private about this. If you're that determined, I can't avoid it anymore. Myra somehow seemed to have gained a fighting spirit. What do you want to compete in? Let's pick outfits in this store and match them, then have a fair judge decide the winner. Jenny pointed at Rhodes confidently. To ensure the outcome is fair, let's have him be the judge. Me? Rhodes was momentarily stunned. Though not sure why they suddenly had to compete, he quickly raised Myra's hand in victory. The winner is Myra Jane. All done, the loser can leave. Jenny was furious. We haven't even started. Myra stifled her laughter. Jenny took a deep breath to calm down. Even if he's the judge, it doesn't mean the result is up to whatever he says. You understand what I mean, right, Myra Jane? Quite sly, but I accept it. I look forward to seeing your face when you lose, Myra responded, her gaze locking with Jenny's, almost as if sparks were flying. Jenny flicked her hair. Then, Judge, please decide the theme. The theme. Rhodes wasn't entirely sure what kind of mutual understanding these two had come to. He casually pointed to a sign nearby, Casual section, let's go with that. Casual? A very ordinary choice, but the more ordinary, the harder it is. Jenny smiled confidently as she walked towards the casual section. Just wait and see. If we're going to compete, then I won't lose. Myra also headed over with enthusiasm to pick clothes. It seemed the two had found some kind of amusement, but Rhodes wasn't feeling the same joy. He had originally been enjoying a simple shopping trip with Myra, but now someone had come to mess it up. The contest involved picking and changing clothes. It was anyone's guess how much time this would take. Jenny was beautiful, yes, but whether a light bulb was pretty didn't really matter, did it? Just as Rhodes resigned himself to a long wait, the two women surprised him. Transform. Transform. With two light declarations, both Myra and Jenny changed into their chosen outfits, even their hairstyles matched their looks perfectly. Wait, you guys use transformation magic for changing clothes? Then what's the point of requip magic? Requip magic involves actually putting on the corresponding outfit, while transformation magic only changes appearances, Myra explained. In the summer, transforming into winter clothes doesn't make you hot, and in the winter, transforming into a swimsuit won't make you cold. Jenny added, don't be so surprised. Professional models use transformation magic to change outfits more efficiently. They even used the transformation magic to subtly enhance their appearances. Alright, enough of this boring stuff, let's judge our outfits now. Jenny said, please give an honest assessment. Rhodes looked at Myra. Myra smiled, just speak your mind. We have a way to determine the winner. Could it be they had some sort of truth detection magic? Rhodes thought about war and maybe even mind reading? Assuming lying was pointless, Rhodes glanced at Jenny and gave an honest evaluation. Miss Jenny, you look very good. Jenny flashed Myra a triumphant smile. Then Rhodes carefully examined Myra. The white tank top really shows off your figure, and paired with the light blue shirt, it looks simple and clean. The light blue denim shorts show off your long legs, and don't clash with the color of the top. The black belt is neither too loose nor too tight, perfectly highlighting your beautiful waistline, and the black purse is a great match. And with the baseball cap and long ponytail, it's bursting with youthful energy. Full marks. Myra gently touched her cheek with her right hand. Oh dear, you're so straightforward with your praise, it's a little embarrassing. You. Jenny's teeth were grinding audibly. She got a simple very good while Myra got a description that could fill 3 pages. Though the judging wasn't based on what Rhodes said, the difference in treatment was infuriating. Myra showed a mischievous smile. Jenny, how about that? Jenny, unconvinced, replied, again. Rhodes watched in confusion as the two returned to the casual section. It was clear that Myra won this round, but what was the actual criteria for judging? Was it the word count of the commentary? It couldn't be that simple. A few minutes later, the two had chosen new outfits and returned to transform again. Rhodes stuck to being honest, giving Jenny a very pretty evaluation. Then he turned to Myra, praising her from head to toe. When Myra chose a dress and spun around in front of him, Rhodes gave her full marks, plus an extra 10. Their constant transformations attracted quite a crowd. Although it somewhat disrupted the store's business at the moment, the store manager was practically grinning ear to ear. Two stunning beauties giving free fashion shows right in his store? It was like a dream come true. He was already considering how to provide great service to the influx of customers. The crowd watching the commotion began giving their scores from their own perspectives. Listening to their chatter, Jenny and Myra actually had an even number of supporters. However, after Rhodes gave his earnest assessment, a significant number of people would be swayed, switching their support on the spot. That guy really spoke sincerely, and honestly, what he said made a lot of sense. After the final round, Jenny undid her transformation magic, returning to her original look. Damn it, I picked the wrong judge. The result of this match had nothing to do with what Rhodes said or how much he said. The only standard was how much amazement was in his eyes. It was a difficult standard to quantify, but Jenny could discern it. As a girl who was frequently in the public eye, she had a keen sense of understanding different gazes. Jenny originally assumed that since Rhodes and Myra were from the same guild, they must be quite familiar with each other. With that in mind, no matter how much Myra changed her look, it would hardly amaze Rhodes. After all, men were always drawn to novelty. And she had looks and a figure that matched Myra's, plus the unfamiliarity to make herself stand out more to Rhodes. It was a huge advantage, making this almost a guaranteed win. But Jenny suddenly realized she had overlooked an important factor that could affect the outcome. She now regretted not simply choosing a random passerby as the judge for a fair competition. Chapter 57, A Little Surprise. So, did I win? Tisk, I lost. Myra was delighted. Jenny's unwilling but forced to admit defeat expression was too amusing. Now, it's time for punishment. Punishment? That wasn't mentioned before. Myra, with a matter-of-fact look, replied, since it's a competitive match, how could there be no punishment? All right, don't move. Jenny watched as Myra reached out toward her face, nervously closing her eyes. Her frightened expression was somewhat adorable, and the crowd's eyes couldn't bear to look away. Myra curled her fingers and flicked her forehead with a thunk. A red mark appeared on Jenny's forehead, and she clutched the spot Myra had flicked. That hurts. Myra imitated Rhodes' earlier tone, all right, loser leaves. Damn it, I'll win next time. Jenny stormed off, fuming. To flick her forehead in public, as if she was a child, she vowed to have a rematch and set an even more humiliating bet, making Myra lose face even more. Sorry, I got carried away and took up so much time, Myra said to Rhodes. It's all right, we're out here having fun anyway. It was quite entertaining. Rhodes felt he didn't lose out, watching Myra's fashion show was a treat. Myra looked at the store, now crowded with people, and suggested, shall we go to another store? Rhodes nodded. Good idea. The clothes and accessories that Myra and Jenny had tried on earlier instantly became popular items, snatched up by young men and women. The store owner and staff managed to maintain order with great difficulty, but when they tried to find Myra and Jenny, they were already gone. What do you think of this one? Now that the distraction was gone, Myra could finally seriously shop for clothes. The main purpose of coming out today was to buy clothes for Elfman. A suit? I don't think it fits Elfman very well. Rhodes tried to imagine Elfman wearing a suit, but the next image that came to mind was him doing a bodybuilder pose and bursting out of the suit in a second. But I kind of want to see what it looks like, Myra thought for a moment. How about you try it on for me, Rhodes? Me? My build is very different from Elfman's. It doesn't matter. We can buy it a little bigger, Myra said. Come on, help me out. All right. Rhodes took the clothes and headed toward the fitting room. Wait. Myra called him back, picked out a pile of small items. Here are the matching shirt, tie, brooch, and handkerchief. Put them on as well. All right. Rhodes took everything into the fitting room. A few seconds later, he peeked his head out again. Myra, Don't you have transformation magic? Couldn't you just change into Elfman's form like you did before? That's true. Myra thought for a moment, but I've used transformation magic too many times just now, and my mana is running low. Really? Rhodes was skeptical. Was transformation magic really that draining? Myra put her hands together, pleading, yes, please. Okay. Rhodes pulled the curtain back. When he came out, he was dressed in a suit, looking upright and confident. Myra's eyes lit up. Rhodes' informal attire gave off a completely different feeling from usual. However, there were some details left unhandled. Rhodes held a tie in his hand, looking somewhat embarrassed. I don't know how to tie it. He had taken a social etiquette class this semester, and apparently, they'd learn about suits, but they hadn't gotten that far yet. Myra smiled. Let me help you. She approached, turned up the collar of his shirt, and stood on tiptoe to wrap the tie around his neck. The almost hug-like gesture made Rhodes' heart skip a beat, the scent of Myra's hair seemingly lingering at his nose. He didn't catch how she tied it, but with a light pull, the knot was formed and pushed up to his collar. Rhodes used adjusting his collar as an excuse to hide his awkwardness. Myra gently adjusted his suit jacket, tucking in the end of the tie. That wasn't the end. Myra removed the misplaced brooch from Rhodes' coat and pinned it properly on the lapel. She also neatly folded the handkerchief and placed it into the breast pocket, leaving a small part visible. After everything was done, Myra gently smoothed the creases on Rhodes' suit, stepped back 2 paces, and looked at him carefully. This scene of a wife helping her husband dress before he leaves, this déjà vu, it was overwhelming. Feeling a bit uncomfortable, Rhodes asked, how do I look? Very handsome. You've matured a lot instantly, and this color doesn't look old either. You look like a social elite. Myra gave her evaluation and then added, but it doesn't suit Elfman. Is it hot in that suit? Yeah, a bit. Rhodes turned his head, tugging at the collar, let's try something else. Alright, I'll keep troubling you. Rhodes continued acting as a mannequin. Though it was a bit troublesome changing clothes repeatedly, he found joy in it. After a while, Myra finally chose 2 outfits, selecting the size based on Elfman's build and asking the staff to help pack them. Seeing the time, it was almost time to prepare for the evening event, so the 2 left and headed back to the hotel. Just as they were leaving, Rhodes suddenly noticed that Myra was carrying 3 bags. Oh? You noticed? Myra turned slightly, her face showing a hint of disappointment that the surprise was found. She leaned forward slightly and handed one of the bags to Rhodes, this is for you. Reaching out to help with the bag suddenly turned into reaching out to receive a gift. That feeling of surprise was indescribable. Myra continued, it's that suit you tried on just now. Since it looks so fitting on you, consider it a thank you for helping me try on clothes. This is too valuable. Well, thank you. Rhodes decided to accept the gift. Even though the more he thought about it, the more it felt like a scene of a poor boy accompanying a wealthy girl, who casually gifted him a luxury item. Well, he'd make sure to return the favor properly later. According to the Guildmaster's assessment, Rhodes was already capable of handling jobs with decent pay. It was time to take on a real mission when they got back. Play it safe, and it'd be best to find a strong teammate. Based on their history, asking Erza for help might be feasible. While pondering, the 2 returned to the hotel. In the lobby, people were coming and going, and many stopped to greet Myra when they saw her. Judging by their appearances, they were most likely journalists and editors from the magazine, who had come early to prepare for the event. The 2 went upstairs, took a short break in their room, and prepared to head to the banquet hall for the evening celebration. At Myra's request, Rhodes changed into the newly bought suit and left his dangerous bag in the room. However, Rhodes didn't feel quite secure, so he slipped a thinner magic book into his pocket. Before leaving, Rhodes rearranged the furniture, making enough space, and summoned a crab to guard the bag. Luckily, the room was spacious enough, otherwise, it would have been hard to even let the crab out. Chapter 58, I'm not interested in fame. Oh, Jenny, what a coincidence. As they left their room, Rhodes and Myra ran into Jenny again. This time, she was dressed in an elegant gown, with her bangs adjusted likely to cover the red mark on her forehead. This time, Rhodes didn't pull out his grenade, mainly because he didn't have his bag with him. Tonight's performance, make sure to watch closely. The most popular one will be, humph. Halfway through her words, Jenny lifted her gown and hurried downstairs, suddenly remembering that Myra wasn't really interested in tonight's performance, so saying anything more would be pointless. Rhodes asked, "How hard did you flick her forehead anyway? She might hold a grudge for a long time." "I only used a tiny bit of strength." Myra made a small dismissive gesture. "She's probably just upset about losing the competition. It's fine." The guests tonight weren't just Myra and Jenny, there were also some lesser-known models in attendance. Each of them, with striking looks, was dressed in styles ranging from charming to sexy to cute, each with her own uniqueness, seemingly all intending to shine tonight. Apart from the models, there were also actors, singers, and others who had previously promoted in Sorcerer Weekly, gradually making their entrance. Rhodes had a basic understanding of the entertainment industry in this world. There were magical crystals specifically for screening movies, which were widely popular. Therefore, talented movie actors also enjoyed a significant amount of admiration. Loke even once got reported by an entertainment agency for hitting on female celebrities, or so Myra said. The spacious banquet hall was fully decorated, adorned with celebratory banners like celebrating the 15th anniversary. At the front of the hall was a semicircular stage, with a large red curtain separating the front from backstage. Inside the hall, a dozen large round tables were set up, filled with exquisite food and various drinks, but no chairs were provided, likely so the attendees could move around and socialize freely. Myra and Rhodes entered the hall together without drawing much attention since she wasn't the only one bringing a male companion. The banquet hall was already filled with small cliques, and people only left their groups if they were interested in meeting someone or admired someone enough to go greet them. Over there are the journalists and editors, mostly quite talkative. Those over there are the novelists, some might be a bit eccentric. And those socialites might be a bit difficult to talk to. Myra introduced a few groups to Rhodes before heading backstage to prepare for her performance. Rhodes couldn't follow her backstage, otherwise, he'd risk being seen as a creep and thrown out. Not being particularly interested in the actors or singers present, he planned to find an inconspicuous spot to quietly enjoy some food until Myra's performance ended. However, it seemed someone had other plans for him. "Hello, I'm Matsuki, a reporter for Sorcerer Weekly. May I ask if you're from Fairy Tale?" A man wearing glasses with a side-parted hairstyle, a camera hanging around his neck, and a notebook in his hand approached Rhodes. Rhodes carefully sensed him for any unusual magical fluctuations, finding none, so he cautiously replied, "Yes." "Great." Matsuki seemed excited. "To be honest, I had the opportunity to visit Fairy Tale a few months ago. I don't remember seeing you there. Are you new? A fan of our guild?" Rhodes nodded, "Yes, I'm new, just joined less than 2 months ago." "Fantastic. I knew it." Matsuki was ecstatic. "So, are you interested in giving me an interview? Appearing in Sorcerer Weekly could help boost your reputation significantly. Fame equals public information." That was far too unsafe, so Rhodes planned to decline politely, "I'm sorry, but I'm really not interested in fame." "Oh, how unfortunate." Matsuki ruffled his hair in frustration. "I've already been rejected 7 times today, and if I can't spend the remaining 10,000J interview fee, the editor-in-chief will scold me for not trying hard enough." "Interview fee? Does this prestigious magazine actually pay interviewees?" "Wait, that's not the main point. 10,000J? Rhodes was a bit short on cash lately. "Well, what I meant was, I have no interest in fame, but I do admire such a hard-working journalist, so I suppose I could help out. What's there to fear from public information? Just release false information. 10,000J enough to properly return Myra's favor." "That's wonderful. Thank you very much." Matsuki was overjoyed. Thus, before the celebration officially began, a simple little interview quietly took place. First, it was just basic information like name and age, nothing really worth hiding. Then the questions shifted to magic. "I use summoning magic to summon unique creatures to assist in my work." Rhodes summoned Worm to make an appearance, and Matsuki took several photos with his camera. "So cute." Then, "Could you tell me where your strength stands within the guild?" "I can't really compare with the veteran members, but among the newcomers, I'm definitely the strongest." There hadn't been any new members joining in the past few months, so Rhodes, being the strongest newcomer, wasn't inaccurate. "That's amazing. The strongest newcomer in the strongest guild, a great headline. The editor-in-chief will love it." Matsuki continued with his questions. That summon just now looks cute. So, what's your most powerful magic? That would have to be the strongest summon I conquered last month, the Scuttle Crab. In an extremely dangerous rift, there's an unfathomably deep river, and living there. Rhodes exaggeratedly described the habitat of the Scuttle Crab, emphasizing that it was a powerful beast he had acquired last month, far surpassing any of his previous summons. He hadn't told a single lie. At the end of the interview, Matsuki requested to see the powerful crab. Rhodes took him to the hotel courtyard to demonstrate. Fortunately, the crab was large enough and ugly enough. Its giant pincers, long antennae, and the spiky protrusions on its shell were all quite intimidating. Matsuki took several close ups of the crab's pincers, and Rhodes pocketed 10,000J. He's such a good guy. The interviewer and the interviewee both made the same comment. The celebration opened with a dance performance by 15 beautiful women. The lively music and vibrant dance moves quickly energized the entire venue. Matsuki had intended to go back and organize his notes, but an event like this wasn't one to miss, so he stayed and ended up hosting Rhodes as well. However, as soon as the performance began, he became engrossed in it, exclaiming in admiration while snapping pictures with his camera. Rhodes wondered if his film would run out or, wait, did cameras here use film or magic crystals? Shrugging off his curiosity, Rhodes focused on eating while watching, mostly eating, really. After a day of running around, he needed to replenish his energy. Between shoveling food into his mouth, he made sure to clap along with the rest of the audience. After the opening dance, the president of the magazine gave a speech, which was mostly celebratory and full of motivation and gratitude. Since he didn't know the speaker nor cared for the content, Rhodes quietly continued eating. When the speech ended, the stage lights shifted, focusing on the center. Myra's turn to perform had arrived. Rhodes put down his utensils and wiped his mouth. Eating wasn't really all that urgent right now. Chapter 59, The Devil. Myra wore a yellow long dress with beige ribbons and bows, simple yet elegant and beautiful. She held a guitar in her arms, her gaze sweeping across the audience below the stage, who were clapping and cheering. When she spotted someone who had just put down his plate and waved at her, Myra smiled gracefully, and then bowed to the audience before sitting down. She gently crossed her legs at the slit of her dress, perfectly covering any areas that shouldn't be exposed. Then, her fingers lightly brushed across the guitar strings. A small bird flew over, its head morphing into a microphone, hovering in front of Myra. The prelude began, and Myra got into her zone. The hall quieted down, and everyone focused on the music from the stage. Finally, she opened her mouth, her clear and melodious voice singing a gentle, healing song. Myra sang with such passion, her expression and tone changing along with the emotions of the lyrics and melody. She poured her feelings into every listener's heart. There were some excellent singers present, but even they couldn't help but sincerely applaud for Myra when she finished. May I flap my wings more powerfully and fly higher. I believe in you. From now on, let us weave beautiful memories together. The last few lyrics had a significant impact on Rhodes. But rationally, the entire song seemed like it was dedicated to the guild members. The most touching lines should be the earlier ones. Because I have my home, because I have people waiting for me. The guild was everyone's home, and the guild had people waiting for everyone to return. Fairy Tale was that kind of place. After the song ended, Myra took a bow and left the stage, circling back to the banquet hall to find Rhodes. So, how was it? I've only recently learned to play the guitar. Was it embarrassing? Of course not. It was great, sounded wonderful, and your singing was really moving, Rhodes said. A few of those reporters just now seemed on the verge of tears. No way, not that exaggerated. Not exaggerated at all. Rhodes picked up an empty plate and placed several types of food in front of her. You must be hungry. These are the ones I've tried, and they taste really good. Not only were they tasty, but there were also no messy sauces, syrups, or fish bones, nothing awkward to eat. Rhodes made a careful selection, not only considering her taste but also ensuring she looked elegant in such a setting. Thank you. Myra, who was used to taking care of others, appreciated the feeling of being taken care of. It's delicious. Myra smiled softly, squinting her eyes slightly. When it came to recommending good food, Rhodes was completely trustworthy. Rhodes chose some food he hadn't tried yet for himself, casually asking, "Are there more plans after this?" "Just saying hello to some editors I'm familiar with," Myra replied. But it's better to stay until the celebration ends before leaving. Besides. Myra blinked, there's still Jenny's final performance. Aren't you looking forward to it? Not particularly, but out of respect for Hibiki, I should acknowledge her effort. Otherwise, if she asks me later which outfit of hers was the best tonight, and I say a yellow dress. Rhodes glanced at Myra, I feel like she'd kill me. Myra looked at her own outfit, then laughed, mischievously saying, why not answer just like that? A devil. But it felt quite amusing, and Rhodes gave a mischievous smile, sure. With two devils at the scene, Jenny backstage suddenly shivered. The celebration continued until around 10 at night. In fact, the actual programs, speeches, and employee interactions ended by 9. The remaining time was for socializing, drinking, and partying. Of course, even when it came to rowdiness, it couldn't compare to the guild. After Rhodes accompanied Myra through the necessary events, they returned to their rooms to rest. Myra had a few drinks, and her cheeks were slightly flushed, though she didn't get drunk. Or rather, it was a good thing she didn't get drunk. Because of that, there were no romantic surprises that evening. Only that he got to see Myra in her sleepwear after taking a bath, not exactly noteworthy. The next morning, after packing up, they went out together to hire a carriage, a proper one with a cabin that could shield them from sun and rain. Rhodes confirmed that the coachman was an ordinary person, and the two horses pulling the carriage seemed healthy. Everything seemed fine. Myra had gotten used to his cautious habits by now, quietly waiting for him to finish the inspection before paying and boarding the carriage. Unfortunately, even after leaving the capital, they didn't run into Jenny again, and their teasing plan came to nothing. Traveling by road has its downsides. Scuttle crabs are too conspicuous. Though he said this, Rhodes still sent out 2 scuttle crabs, one ahead and one behind, to scout. Taking a boat would mean going upstream, plus today's weather isn't suitable for sailing. Myra ignored the crab issue and simply explained the reason for taking the carriage. Besides, arranging to hire a carriage was something Rhodes needed to gain more experience with. By the way, this is for you. Rhodes took a paper bag from his backpack. Myra was about to say she already had a grenade in her purse and didn't need anything else, but when she opened the bag, it wasn't a spellbook as she'd imagined. It was a small black crossbody bag. Oh, it's the envelope bag from that store yesterday. Myra looked pleasantly surprised. When did you get it? Morning, during my jog. Passed by that store. Even if he made a point to pass by, it was still passing by. Rhodes said. Think of it as a thank you gift. Though I wasn't sure about your preferences. He really wasn't sure. Rhodes only remembered that during Myra and Jenny's competition yesterday, this bag appeared twice in Myra's outfit. Jenny might not have noticed in her fury, but she could have asked for points to be deducted because of it. Thank you, I love it. No wonder when he said he'd gone for a jog that morning, he didn't seem to have broken a sweat. Myra hugged the bag and the paper bag together, her eyes curving into crescents. I'm glad you like it. Rhodes let out a sigh of relief. His deduction was right, and at least this gift hadn't been amiss. Rhodes was about to say something more when suddenly he froze and shouted ahead, "Stop the carriage, stop!" The coachman reined in the horses steadily, and with a soft whinny, the carriage slowed down and came to a quick halt. Sitting sideways, Myra's body tilted slightly from the inertia, but she quickly regained her balance. She asked, "What's wrong?" "There's someone blocking the road ahead," Rhodes replied. Myra pulled back the curtain from the carriage window and stuck her head out, seeing only a relatively flat but slightly winding dirt road. She strained her eyes to look forward, but all she saw was a dirt slope, no sign of anyone. "Where?" she asked, puzzled. "About a kilometer ahead. 2 people, one with a magic staff, and the other holding a flute. They must be wizards." A kilometer away. Myra thought of the scuttle crabs Rhodes had sent out. What a reliable scouting unit. Comment. 0 comment. Vote. Chapter 60, Is That It? Rhodes and Myra claimed they wanted to take a short break and asked the coachman to wait for a while. It wasn't an unreasonable request, and the coachman didn't refuse, moving the horses into the shade to rest. Rhodes then took Myra a bit further away. From the coachman's angle, he could only see Rhodes' back, with Myra's figure blocked. The coachman lit a cigarette and shook his head slightly. Young people these days. In reality, the two were just having an ordinary discussion. I checked the rearward scuttle crab's vision, and currently, there are no other carriages or horses on this road, which means their target is very likely us. Myra furrowed her brow, but why? Can you confirm their identities? I don't recognize them. The guy with the staff has a phantom emblem on the back of his neck. Rhodes raised an eyebrow. The scuttle crab got spotted, and they seem a bit cautious, but they let it pass without much concern. Phantom? As in Phantom Lord. Myra knew that Phantom Lord had some bad blood with Fairy Tail, and their mages occasionally had minor conflicts when they crossed paths. Rhodes nodded. Yep, the one that, like us, is considered one of the strongest guilds in Fiori. He remembered Phantom Lord's guild master and the key members, and these two clearly weren't among them. Rhodes thought for a moment. I've got 3 plans right now, help me think this through. For someone in our guild to face a situation without rushing in head first but instead propose solutions first, let alone 3 at once, the guild master would be so proud. Just to be sure, Myra asked, the 3 plans don't include just rushing over and throwing explosive magic crystals at them, right? How could I be so violent? Seeing a wizard standing in the middle of the road and blowing them up or something, even a dark guild wouldn't do that. Jenny might have something to say about that. The first plan is the easiest. Since we know their location, we can just go around them, Rhodes said. That way, we avoid any possible conflict altogether, with no risk. The downside is we don't learn their objective, and if we avoid them this time, they could come back again. Myra nodded, and if they aren't targeting us specifically but rather our guild, our companions might be in danger later on. The second plan is to keep moving forward, and as soon as they make a move, we fight back. That way, they're the ones starting the conflict, and the Magic Council will deal with them. But since we don't know what their magic is or their strength, there's a chance we could mess up, and it might even affect the coachman. I don't recommend this approach. If Erza or Natsu were here, they'd probably pick this one. If you are in the right, just fight it out. Myra agreed that neither she nor Rhodes was suitable for that kind of impulsiveness. Given the amount of explosive magic crystals they carried, it could easily turn deadly. So, the last plan must be the safest. Rhodes nodded. Yep. The third plan is for us to rest here. I'll send out a bunch of summoned creatures to see if we can deal with them. Then we'll interrogate them to learn their intentions. If it doesn't work out, we can always circle back and ask the guild master to handle them. As long as it's not Phantom Lord's key members, dealing with them definitely wouldn't require the guild master himself. Myra felt that Rhodes could handle it on his own. She nodded. Then I'll leave it entirely to you, Mr. Bodyguard. Do you need my help? Miss Myra Jane, please relax. I've got some snacks prepared, maybe offer them to the coachman to keep him from getting anxious. Myra smiled. Yes, Mr. Rhodes. Rhodes immediately started taking action, first moving the rearward scuttle crab to join the one in the front. Opening up vision before a fight to prevent being ambushed, this is called anti-gank awareness. Then he summoned 2 groups of krugs, instructing them to burrow underground and move forward. Next, he summoned 2 groups of merc wolves, instructing them to take advantage of the roadside trees and bushes for stealth. Finally, he summoned a group of raptors, ordering them to spread out and fly low, ready to launch an aerial attack at any time. As for the last group of raptors and the 2 gromps, Rhodes decided to conserve his magic for a backup force, no point in exhausting himself before a fight even started. Myra watched as the summoned creatures left in groups, feeling uncertain whether there were 2 enemies or 20. Behind the small dirt slope, about a kilometer away, the wizard holding the flute asked, Stad, we've been waiting for an hour now. When are they coming? The wizard holding the staff replied, Be patient, Fowl. If they're heading to Fairy Tail from Crocus, they're bound to pass through here. Even if they're slow, they'll be here by noon. Oh. Fowl pressed the holes on his flute out of boredom and suddenly added, Did you see that big crab just now? It's weird what kind of species runs around on land this far from water. Who knows? Probably a local creature. Stad pointed with the tip of his staff. Look, there's another one. Fowl licked his lips, pretending to lift the flute to his mouth. How about catching one to see how it tastes? We skipped breakfast to block their path. Don't do unnecessary things, Stad said. If we can embarrass Fairy Tail, we have a chance to get transferred to the main headquarters. Then we could meet Mr. Gajeel. The great Mr. Gajeel. At the mention of that name, Stad's eyes were filled with admiration, and Fowl looked envious. Hey, why did that crab stop moving? Could it be, it sees us as food? The scuttle crab's size and appearance were quite intimidating, making the two wizards nervous. They picked up their weapons, keeping an eye on the crab. Suddenly, the ground beneath them shook, and two Krugs burst out of the earth, clamping their pincers around the backs of the two men's waists. Whoa! A monster! What is this thing? In their panic, one lifted his staff, while the other blew his flute. Just then, two more Krugs emerged from the ground, their targets being the staff and flute. A glowing orb shot out from the pentagram at the staff's tip, and a sonic wave blasted from the flute's tail, each hitting a Krug. The two Krugs hit the ground, splitting into 4 mini Krugs, continuing to charge per Rhodes' orders. What the heck are these monsters? The two were already panicking, and seeing that their attacks only multiplied the enemies made them even more terrified. In such a situation, without proper intel, facing creatures that seemed to grow in number with every strike naturally made their scalps tingle. But they had no choice, they had to keep fighting. At that moment, 6 merc wolves lunged out from the roadside bushes. 4 ordinary wolves bit down on the two men's wrists, making them drop their weapons, while 2 two-headed wolves stood in front of them, each of the 4 heads growling softly into their ears. The 4 mini Krugs faithfully continued their task of destroying weapons, heading towards the discarded staff and flute. 16 stone-like legs stomped down, snapping the staff and crushing the flute. With their arms bitten and unable to struggle, their weapons destroyed, ferocious wolf heads growling in their ears, and the smell of blood mixed with wolf saliva splashing onto their faces. "We're done for." Stad fell into despair, giving up all resistance. Fowl simply rolled his eyes and fainted. 6 raptors flew overhead, landing a short distance away, ready for an airstrike if needed. But it turned out they weren't needed at all. Observing through the scuttle crab, Rhodes wore a look of disbelief. He had prepared so thoroughly, and yet these guys. Is that it?
Thanks for listening.